Hello, folks, and welcome back to our little revisits of our past movie commentaries. So today we're going to look at what I'm pretty sure Warner Brothers thought was going to be their big summer blockbuster of 2008, considering the people involved. It
Which,
didn't turn out that way.
which is ridiculous considering The Dark Knight came out in the same summer.
This is 2008 Speed Racer, directed by the Wachowskis and starring Emil Hirsch as Speed Racer, along with a bunch of other well-known actors.
Okay, if ever there was a choice that's great for a Generations commentary, it's this movie. See, when we commentated on this was back when this movie was absolutely lambasted for multiple reasons. I think the leading reason is people saw it at the time as the Wachowskis trying to make a pretentious picture out of Speed Racer or a gaudy-looking film, which was weird coming off of their last film franchise, The Matrix, which used more washed-out colors here and there. That being said, as you can probably tell with the theming of our movies this month, it's been a long time since we last commentated on Speed Racer.
I think I mentioned a couple of times, but I genuinely have zero memories of original commentary.
I actually
The thing I
showed
remember most
We
is
saw
how
the
much
movie,
time...
but I cannot just remember it.
the interesting
The
thing
thing
is
I
that
remember most is how much work I put into that thumbnail, one of our most custom ones.
in the years in between that commentary and today's commentary, I actually showed the entirety of Speed Racer, the anime, to both Theo and Dwebs a few years
I mean,
back.
I was gonna mention it later, but sure, go on, Dweebs.
All right, the movie's long enough for some reason, so we'll get started right away. Start before the psychedelic Warner Brothers logo.
Mm-hmm.
In 3, 2, 1, go.
Also,
Yeah, I
small
might as well-
correction about the release date, Dweebs. It was released officially starting on April 26th at the Nokia Theater, then in May in Germany and the United States, and July in Japan. So,
Yeah, might as
Japanese
well-
release for Japanese summer release. Go on, Jova.
Might as well kick this off by saying that, yes, as you probably have heard, this movie has gotten a massive reevaluation from being one of the most hated movies to being considered possibly one of the best translations of an anime or manga to live action. One of those reasons are, ironically enough, the visuals. Back then, and I get it, mid to late 2000s, it was seen as too colorful or gaudy in that regard. I will say this, looking back at this movie and going off of the research I've done with why it was hated back then and why it's beloved now, I really do get the feeling that this is a movie that was released way too early. Like, I feel like had this movie been released in this day and age, people would be singing its praises much, much more.
As a fan of the Speed Racer anime, I don't give a rat's ass when this movie came out. I still find this to be a terrible adaptation.
Without us even having looked at it fully, but that's another thing also. This apparently takes more cues from the manga as well, which admittedly was one thing I was
Susan
not aware of at the
Sarandon?
time.
I forgot
Yes.
that she's in the year.
Well, remember too, like most of the Wachowskis productions usually have star-studded casts.
Anyway, for those who don't know, Speed Racer, well, also in New Zealand Japanese title Mako Go Go Go, was a manga from Tatsuo Yoshida, which also spawned the anime by Tatsunoko Production. While not as famous as stuff like Yataman, Tekamen Blade, or Kyashan, it still was fairly popular, particularly also one of the early examples of having an English dub, which was cheesy as hell. Most famously, people exclaiming with their fate is, "Oh!" And yes, like Pedro said, in the intermediate time, he actually showed me the anime, and yes, it gets very insane. But again, from what I heard, that was mostly Tatsunoko just smoking that dank kush, because, well, the manga in itself is also relatively over the top. It is in a more contained way, from what I know. And like I said, I completely lost memories of this movie anyway, so it might as well be like the first time I watched this.
All right.
So from what I can understand, this movie goes for a mix between the vibes of the anime and the manga. So if you're strictly a fan of the anime, it is understandable why this may not gel as well with you.
Unfortunately, Speed Racer will not use a Tommy gun to genocide a country these days.
It's not just.
What can you do about it?
Or take out an entire nation's government.
It's not
That's
just.
what I just said.
That's the thing. It's not even
Though we
just
do
because
get
of
some
the.
equally crazy stuff.
That's
Yes,
it's
Pedro.
not even just because of the adaptation aspect of it. I just don't find it to be a good movie in general.
That's fine. It's not
He's
for
literally
everyone.
called Speed Racer as a child. Yeah, that's another thing. Oh god, the green screen. Also, I recognize this actor too.
Yeah, that green screen is terrible.
Is that the guy who plays Bryce in 13 Reasons Why? Like, I don't know.
All right. Okay. I'll be honest. I know the Star Wars prequels get a lot of shit for having a lot of their stuff filmed on green screen. This came out. This came out years after those, and it looks far worse.
Honestly, so far, I can tell you this. You know what this CGI reminds me of?
What?
The Dr. Seuss live-action adaptation.
Yeah.
You were going to say, Pedro?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Anyway, yeah. One thing that this movie was critiqued for heavily was the overusage of CGI, which, even with me having a bit more of a potentially positive, I say potentially because, again, I am probably going to watch this through and judge it accordingly before deciding whether or not I magically love it or whatnot, since this is legit my first time seeing this movie all the way through since, well, the last time we commentated on
Which
it.
was a long time ago, in case you forgot.
No, but yeah, okay, for the times back when, and to be fair, the Wachowskis are still kind of a joke. I mean, okay, I'll be fair. Now that stuff has come to light that we know that some things of theirs were not entirely their fault, although some stuff still was, I can get why they may have wanted to move away from the Matrix and do something different.
Not just that, Jova, in general, as also showcased by the Matrix, the Wachowskis have always been fan of Japanese culture and anime, as by extension. So it was kind of logical they would try to do an adaptation at some point.
So I will say this: the visuals, I get why they were lambasted back then. Even outside of it just being the styles of the time, because, yeah, mid to late 2000s, I remember people were going more for the less colorful and more
not just that,
vibe.
okay, not necessarily the CGI and green screen, but when you cut to the characters, like in the cockpit, I'm also reminded of the Robert Rodriguez, kids movie, like Shark Boy and Lava Girl and Spy Kids instead.
Yeah, and honestly,
This came out 7 years after the first Spy Kids, and how does it look worse?
that's the thing. Yeah, I actually think that's the thing. Yeah, I actually think Robert Rodriguez would be a much better pick to direct this movie than the Wachowskis. Honestly,
I don't know if I'd say it looks worse than Spy Kids, since Spy Kids is
I will say
really
that it's still better looking than Shark Boy and Lava Girl at the very least.
Oh, definitely.
I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be cameos, but I don't know who most of these people are.
If I remember correctly, the old man announcer is meant to be the original.
It's Adrian Brody.
Yes.
What?
Well, Theo, I mean, you've seen enough Wachowskis movies. They are
more like it's like watching a live action adaptation of a Frank Miller work.
So yeah, they got in Peter Fernandez and Corinne Orr from the TV show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Like, I will say this. I do get the feeling, and granted, actually, it's not even just the feeling, like, legit. Part of the reason this movie is beloved now is because, looking at some of the stuff, I can see that these visuals are definitely inspired by Speed Racer. I do think that with, the technology of nowadays, like, look at stuff like the One Piece Netflix show, or, heck, despite whatever issues people may have with it, the Avatar The Last Airbender Netflix show. Like, give them credit. Their visuals carry off a lot better. I do agree, stuff like this does look a bit awkward, but yet I get why people praise it nowadays, given how, for as awkward as it does look, there is a good sense of authenticity to it in regards to capturing the look and feel of what Speed Racer would be in live action. And
My problem is that
I-
those bits nearly get. I have to look away because I was afraid of getting a seizure.
Yeah, I was about to
Jesus
say,
Christ.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
what I mean.
Be-
I've seen the show. I don't remember ever
No.
having to nearly look away from the screen.
No, the
because
show.
of
The show.
that.
Oh, John Goodman, of course.
Yeah, okay, to be fair, I will say this. The character of Papa, that's kind of fit when it comes to casting for John
Oh,
Goodman.
no.
So at the
Oh, no,
at
that-
the
yeah.
very least, there is that. I
No,
will
I
talk
will-
more about the family later, but... sorry, it was my train of thought. Continue, Pedro.
No. I was just saying that adding up to Dwebs. No, in the show, and I'm assuming the manga, obviously, considering it's just stuck pictures, obviously, doesn't have any kind of seizure-inducing sequences. So I have no idea why this is even here.
Yeah, now I remember, like, how did... Okay, because, like, genuinely, like you said, forgot even the commentary. Great transition. I genuinely forgot the commentary, original commentary. How did Shiri got through this movie?
She didn't like
Okay.
it.
Well,
I know
okay,
about I don't know about not liking.
Okay,
did she
let-
manage? Jova, tell me, did she manage to see the movie?
She did. One thing we have to remember that she's told us is that not every one of these is like, at risk of killing her or anything. It seems to be a case-by-case basis.
Also, I think
I
I saw
recall-
this child actor too. I changed him.
Hey, Chim
Yeah,
Chim.
it's
So,
That's instead another thing. The child character that's accompanied by Chim Chim, usually it's technically younger than this child actor that they got here.
also, so in typical Speed Racer tradition, the movie starts with Speed in the middle of a race, and we see a guy
Hey,
who
Tracy.
wants him taken out.
Oh, sorry, Tracy. Sorry.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah,
Tracy's
that's-
played by Christina Ricci. Yeah.
Sure, why
Right.
not? Let me also use this to talk about it. The fact that the character, it's not necessarily the nickname as a pilot, but literally his birth name, Speed Racer. That's because a thing that the manga and the anime both had is that they got a Saturnified. The entire family of Speed actually got renamed to have more American names because
Don't say that word.
originally they were called the Mifune family, with the main character being called Go Mifune. So technically speaking, he's still a pun, but his name normally would make sense. Instead, having a child being actually called Speed as a birth name just feels weird.
And it's the kind of
as a
silly
brand-
stuff.
and mind you, not necessarily for this movie, but for the franchise in general, this probably would have been the better opportunity to just call the characters with their Japanese names, but unfortunately, they did not take it.
We may have to agree to disagree because honestly, the name Speed has become very iconic for the character. And let's be honest, that is not nearly the craziest thing we've seen in an anime, Japanese original
I mean-
or localization wise.
I mean, this franchise is already meant to be goofy and silly anyway. So honestly, the name Speed Racer doesn't. I mean, at that point, it just doesn't really matter if he has a silly name.
I don't know. Like I said, I get the idea we could have been done in a way that it still made sense while being a pun.
the mentality I'm getting from this film is,
A bomb!
oh yes. Okay, I do love how unapologetically over the top this movie is.
That's the sad
But I
part.
think-
Go. That's the sad part. I actually think it's not over the top enough. That's the thing. I actually wanted it to be even more over the top than what it is. But
That's
I will elaborate as the movie goes on.
If there is one thing I can talk about positively about this movie, not these edits, obviously.
Great transitions!
Not these transitions. These are just pretty annoying.
Yeah, the transitions were another thing that
Like you
weren't
said,
particularly
it's like from a Frank Miller comic book.
Um,
I mean,
one positive thing I can mention is the soundtrack. It's the music's done by Michael Giacchino, who was a big fan of the show when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
If I recall correctly, we
And
gave
even-
the credits to the opening of the anime.
The Speed Racer theme, yeah.
oh, Pio, not just the opening, we get like a legit remix of the ED.
True, but I think we get also the original as well.
Yeah.
So actually, let me check. Who plays the big brother of Speed? Let's see.
Racer X, you mean?
Yes, Matthew
Spoilers,
Fox.
Pedro.
Again, even the anime barely attempted to keep it as a spoiler.
Which is
Matthew Fox. This is actually one of his few movie roles. He mostly has been on TV.
I will say, I feel like no actor is wasted in this movie.
Oh, Jack! Of
What?
course, Jack from Lost. That's where I saw him.
Okay.
Oh, well, I guess he had a budding career thanks to us.
Like I said, good cast for John Goodman as Pops. Susan Sarandon is the
Definitely.
mother. Christina Ricci is Trixie. Let me see, the little snorkeling
yeah.
who is played by.
No matter
Michael.
how little I have of that life left.
Polly Litt.
Of course it was raining.
Yeah, that's also another weird thing. These constant flashbacks that we're having during this race.
Well, this is, to be fair, this is the actual backstory that Speed's brother left years ago.
Oh no, I get it, but like, are we having all of these in the middle of a race? Like, the Watchmen movie would have come out the year after this, and that one actually had a better idea of integrated flashbacks.
I mean-
in the middle of us telling a story.
Let me put it this way. I think they
I'm sorry. So
Nah, it's okay.
they really think this is like
Gold.
No. Okay, let me be fair, because not necessarily being avant-garde or anything, but they want to give a dynamic presentation and possibly doing the same thing that Ang Lee tried to do with Hulk 2003, as in trying to simulate the idea of a manga, in this case like a comic book panel,
Okay.
which has different angles and everything, but. Like I said, distracting.
Yeah, okay.
I will
want
say
to
this. Sorry.
Okay, so two things. One, I appreciate that they're trying to implement the backstory. I think the way it's done, yeah. Look at first off, this editing. Okay, calm down, movie. Let me focus on one scene at a time and stop interrupting scenes in the moment of them. It's kind of hard for me to feel the tragic backstory of Speed when you keep interrupting it with obnoxious transitions like this. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go on.
I will say, for all the praise this movie gets, I don't know if the wipe transitions are something that's praised.
Yeah,
and
Rex
if they,
had the accent. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
and even if they are praised, I think it can be agreed that
Yeah.
they're a good idea to be used sparingly, not this ad nauseum.
Look. Sorry, I thought you were done. Go on.
It's look, there are things I will defend about this movie now. The overuse of the wipe, though, is not one of them. I'll admit. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a cool transition, but
It's
when
overused.
you pump this much, yes, and mind you, we're not even 20 minutes into the movie.
Yeah, it's almost like we're actually starting with the climax.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was about to say. Okay, see, aside from the fact that the editing is obnoxious and I can't focus on one scene at a time because the movie keeps interrupting itself. Okay, here's the thing. If you really... Okay, I understand. You want to have the tone be not as over the top as the anime because you want to be more faithful to the manga. Okay, fine. So you want to have the story have more weight. Okay, if you want us to focus more on the backstory and properly try to get invested in this, you need to first not interrupt the scene, the backstory, I mean, with all these weird transitions. Like, this feels like seriously, the way this is paced together feels so obnoxious. And second, here's a better way you could handle this. Instead of having the backstory right from the get-go, maybe you could start with just speed racing. Like just the race, nothing in between, just the race. And then later, we have maybe Speed talks to someone, and then they have an actual heart-to-heart talk where the backstory gets brought up, and the full flashback we see uninterrupted. So that would be a much better way to go about it. Instead, you have this thing where we're seeing the backstory, and it's constantly obnoxiously interrupted by weird transitions and seizure-inducing sequences, and it's just obnoxious. Ugh. Sorry, go on. I'm done.
I wonder who this mysterious person is.
I wonder.
Could be anyone.
It
Like,
could...
like I said, despite the show, despite the show barely attempting at keeping cover about Racer X, they did keep his face obscured. At least having a mask all the time.
I'm guessing that's an animatic from the manga. I'm guessing. Oh no, never mind then. Never mind. No, never mind then. This is not.
Maybe it's another Tatsunoko production, thing that I just don't recognize.
Damn
Also, Comic Sans.
damn the new adaptation of
What
of
now?
the manga. It looks really weird. Oh,
What?
It's like I'm watching a Doug Walker review video.
What the hell is going on?
Again,
No, okay, I get it. These two are meant to be the comic relief characters. Obviously, they will be silly. I'm not complaining about them being silly. They're meant to be. But what was that sequence even?
Again, I suppose imagine, Spritle seeing the world through his eyes or something. The thing is that, like I said, Spritle is supposed to be younger than what is here.
I think the actor they got to play
supposed to be
Sprite looks fine, honestly.
He's supposed to be still a very little child,
Well,
or
okay. To be
anything.
fair, getting a 3 to 5-year-old who can actually act is incredibly difficult. So I don't blame the Wachowskis for getting someone who's a bit older. Because let's face it, Theo, how many 5-year-olds can actually act decently?
Depends also on what you want to do, make with the role. Because Spritle and Chim-Chim's roles in the original, at least in the anime, I don't know how much similar to the manga it was to basically fuck shit up around. Essentially, stow away in the Mach 5 and potentially sabotage the others.
That's
true.
another thing to consider. That's kind of dangerous for a 5-year-old to do. Like, okay, like, this is one of those cases where I'm gonna have to agree with Pedro. Like, I get why they had him be older in that regard, and like, okay, it's not like they made him into a teenager anyway.
He's still acting like the character should anyway, so whatever.
Also, since we didn't mention it, let's see. Budget 120 million, recouping 93.9. So yeah, it was definitely a bomb.
Yeah.
Remember, this was back in the day where the Wachowskis...
The fuck are you?
Remember, by the time this movie came out, the Wachowskis' reputation had already gone pretty downhill, and they had their big 15 minutes of fame with the first Matrix, and their reputation went downhill right after that. Yeah, V for Vendetta was good, but that was an outlier. Let's face it.
Remind me again, what year was instead the Jupiter Ascending?
2015.
We still haven't commented on that despite everything.
And there's also Cloud Atlas, which was also
really
terrible.
Haven't?
No, we have not.
We only had Pedro and Dweebs actually giving a fresh roundtable talk as
A discussion video that we did, yeah.
Ah, that's right, yeah. Question, wait, what was that movie you said was their outlier, Pedro?
V for Vendetta. Although they didn't direct that one, they only wrote it.
But yeah, no, I mean, that's another thing that was not going to do this movie any favors. Like, okay, while the Matrix trilogy did make money, it was kind of one of those delayed flops in the sense that while I don't think the Wachowskis' tarnished reputation showed via the box office of those movies, it would, I think, show in movies that came after. Most notably this, which if I recall correctly, this is like the first movie they made after the Matrix trilogy.
I think so.
We've got E.P. Arnold Royalton here, played by Roger Allen.
Mm-hmm.
How is the Wachowskis' reputation nowadays compared to
after at least for one of them, after the fourth Matrix movie, I'm pretty sure it's still a bit
down in the dumps. The Matrix Resurrections, Matrix Resurrections, Jova, is laughably bad.
Keep in mind, Jova,
yeah, I mean, which makes it better than the 2 sequels after the first movie, but yeah, still pretty bad.
Keep in mind, Jova, that despite Resurrections faults, and flaws and bad stuff, the Matrix is still relatively, for now, the Matrix is still relatively seen in a sort of a positive highlight, as in nostalgic memories and everything for people, to the point that people still are, positive to the idea of something like, say, Neo showing up in Multiversus, as an example.
Plus, they're making a Matrix 5 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Albeit Lily's just going to be an executive producer.
Oh, I definitely get that. Like, okay, let me put it like this. Matrix, the original trilogy, went through an interesting trajectory where it was beloved, then it was made fun of, then it was hated. Now that things have sort of come around, arguably more for Keanu Reeves than the Wachowskis, but I digress, things have come around to a certain point. The Matrix trilogy is seen as silly, but it still did earn its mark in cinematic history.
Yeah, it's just a thing done around that time, not necessarily for outdated stuff, but just because it was literally could have been done all in that time.
And admittedly, The Matrix is a good signifier of the early 2000s, essentially, in cinema.
I still
Commodore 64.
Memories.
no. I'll actually still take even Revolutions over Resurrections because Resurrections feels so cynical and as a result so obnoxious to me. At least Revolutions was trying to tell a story, even though
Also,
it sucked.
I still genuinely like the action scenes in Revolution. So
Oh no! The final fight between Neo and Smith is basically.
I also like the Defense of Zion.
No, it's basically the final fight.
Cool.
No, like before the fight between Superman and General Zod in Man of Steel, the final fight of Revolutions has always been regarded as an example of how you could potentially make a Dragon Ball Z fighting action movie, right? In live action, right? The action in Resurrections, by comparison, it's terrible. Which
okay. Look, I don't mind the fact that Sprite Lino is in awe with the candies, but why did the shot make it like he had a crush on the flight attendant?
Fake out gag.
Yeah,
Okay.
fake out gag.
I will say this also. For whatever dislike I did have of Speed Racer, I still like that more than most of the Matrix movies.
Well, again, I want to wait until I see this entire thing before saying anything on the
Well,
matter.
if it helps you,
Well, I'm going
Jova.
off of how I felt back then. Like, granted, maybe again, for all I know, my feelings could change by the end of
Honestly,
this.
Well, if it helps.
I'm more. Sorry, go on.
If it helps you, Jova, I'm not even particularly a fan of the first movie myself. So
I'm just again, I'm more pondering things for myself because I normally don't forget an entire movie after I saw it. So I don't know why this one in particular. Maybe I was sick. Maybe I was sick at the time. I don't know.
I actually can. You're talking about forgetting about this movie too?
Yeah.
Okay, I can actually give my theory on that, but I'll wait until the movie's further in.
Sure.
Wow,
You're drunk?
wow, this
No.
I am not, Jova, but I wish I was.
No, John was theorizing about me back then.
Alright.
No, I wasn't. Go on, please.
wow, how did this deleted scene from Spy Kids 3D get in here?
Okay, I want to say also another thing.
Oh yeah, here's another thing, by the way, Jova.
Hold on. Tia was about to say something.
Go on.
Well, I guess it's on similar matters, but I want to say, I know that it's a bit cheating to say this, but not like 1 year later. Sure, it had a bigger budget and more years to be made, but 1 year later, James Cameron's Avatar came out. Comparing the two, the CGI in this is just, like I said, a bit embarrassing.
Well, here's the thing. Regardless of what I may think of James Cameron, the guy knows how to make a good-looking movie.
Look. James Cameron is one of those few directors who can sell a movie just off of the visual potential. And say what you will about Avatar, but that movie literally represents a turning point in cinematic history for the technology on hand. But you wanted to say, Pedro?
One thing, too, that I actually can also mention about the visuals, actually, is the 3D. Remember, allow me to explain something for those who may have either missed it or maybe don't remember it. Back in the late 2000s and early 2010s, Hollywood was trying their freaking hardest to shove 3D down our throats.
Yeah.
Nowadays, fortunately, while it's still technically around, it's fortunately much less pronounced, and it's but back in these days, Hollywood was trying their hardest to sell 3D onto us, and this movie was also part of that. As a result, a lot of the stuff we see in the background also got thrown at us in the 3D version of this movie, so it probably made the movie even harder to watch on some people.
I can't imagine watching this movie in 3D.
Already on the big screen, I wonder what the kind of experience it could have been. Obviously, judging from the box office, not many people went to see it, but I do wonder how much.
Now,
Jesus.
Again, regardless of whether or not we like or loathe this film, I do wonder if it may have been a case of it bombing due to just the stars aligning with all the stuff going against it. Seeing as how one thing that this movie was definitely a victim of was the time it was released in. Now, I'm not going to act like releasing it in another year would magically have made it better, but being more colorful in a time where people were more into the more washed out color scheme at the time.
Also,
The-
sorry, go on.
The CGI and visuals, again, not being really what people were looking for, and again, key point, Wachowskis. I just wonder, had this been made at a different date, could it have turned out better? Not just because the Wachowskis' reputations may have been different, but because they may have had better technology to work with. Again, I bring up stuff like the One Piece Netflix show, which is a Netflix show, keep in mind. And yeah, there's money there, but that Netflix show looks pretty damn good. And that was a show people were fearing
Keep in
would
mind,
look
though,
ugly because of, what One Piece does in animation.
Well, it's worth mentioning, Joe, that that show was made like what, nearly 20 years later.
Over a decade later.
So
Well,
obviously,
that's why
by
I
the
point out.
Go on.
Well, okay, that's my point, though. I wonder if part of the problem with the movie at the time was just that the technology was not there for what they wanted to truly portray.
I argue it's more of a stylistic choice. Remember, look at sure the CGI in the Matrix movies these days is very dated, particularly the one in Reloaded, the fight scene against the Smiths, in the courtyard, for example. But when it came to the stylistic choice in those movies, there was an idea still of filming it as a traditional movie, shot in the. Shot on some location and everything. In this, like I said, probably in order to emulate the manga panels, they want to have almost everything on a green screen in order to have environments that are colorful and extravagant to reflect the ones of the source material, and combine also with transitions of characters overimposed over the others and almost in a, like we mentioned, also potentially almost a nauseating way. But I can tell you two things, Jova. One, in my country, the marketing of this movie was almost zero, not almost nothing. I didn't even knew this movie came out when this came out.
Like in terms of its American release, this film came out 1 week after Iron Man.
Oh, that might.
So basically, Warner Brothers Warner Brothers sent this movie out to die. Good job, Warner.
Okay. Let's be fair. That was back before anyone knew.
Nobody knew if Iron Man would have been that much of a big hit. And also, I can tell you this, in case you're wondering, because I normally ask this question for a movie that is its question what is on. In case you're wondering why the Razzies did not touch this movie with a 10-foot pole, they were already busy, basically, I don't even think they touched Twilight, but they were busy with the Salzburg Hell stuff that was happening. The Spartans and Disaster movie. Yeah, 2008, despite having, good solid movies that are still remembered to this day, 2008 is apparently regarded as a bad year for movies in general.
In terms of where they filmed this movie, it was basically a couple of studios in and around Germany.
Okay, hold on. Let me just address your question, Jova.
Sorry.
Let me just address your question, Jova, about the whole releasing this in the right time thing. That was kind of whiplash, but whatever. So here's the thing. While it is true that the movie being made in 2008 does at the very least make it understandable why the CGI looks the way it is, the seizure-inducing bits, no, that's not a time thing. That's just a stylistic thing on part of the Wachowskis. Like, you didn't need to make it like that.
Like I said before, those family-friendly Robert Rodriguez movies that came out years before this, with the exception of Sharp Boy and Lava Girl, and on much cheaper budgets, look better than this movie.
And hell, I get that it came out 2 years after, but it's still close enough, I'll argue. Like, the city bending in Inception still looks fantastic to this day.
Warner Bros.
Also Warner Brothers, yeah. Go on, Jova.
All good points, I will give you that. I will say we may want to give Spy Kids a rewatch before we claim they look better, because I have seen those recently, and don't get me wrong, I will say this. I do feel like they're better put together movies, but better effects. Like, they came out way earlier, and boy, does the rage show in that regard.
My argument is, this had more time to cut. That came out after it,
and a big studio to back up.
A big studio and a much bigger budget.
Well, yes, but my point is that I like the Spy Kids movies. I don't think they look as good as you're making them out to be, more so in comparison to this.
So yeah,
Again.
an entirely different movie.
Yeah, I was about to mention, just to mention what has been happening, Speed and his family are going to with a contract with a guy that's totally not shady, we swear, In the meantime, this mafioso guy is basically was about to torture this poor guy.
This will actually tie into stuff, and to be fair, Speed Racer was...
Yeah, we have
not
several
unfamiliar-
episodes where weird shit like this happens
Oh, yeah.
almost tangentially.
No, it's like I said. My issue is not that the movie is weird. My issue is that I don't think the movie's weird enough. That's the thing. I wish the movie was actually weirder than it is.
That said, I will say, I really do love scenes like this that do lean into the silliness.
Oh, yeah.
It's legit a moving mafioso office on wheels.
Also, I'm
Duking
pretty
it out
sure. I'm pretty sure the photo that the driver had behind them was supposed to be another cameo of sorts. But I'm genuinely behind when it comes to recognizing cameos for this movie.
To expand upon
Anyway,
what...
going back-
Sorry, go on. Go on.
Going back to that earlier scene with Speed's dad, I wanted to point out one thing I really liked is that Speed's dad does give a good speech about how he does not feel comfortable about people who are that rich, given how they tend to get corrupted by the money and all that. But to his credit, he does not try to command his son. He says that if Speed agrees to it, maybe we can work something out. So, I do like how this doesn't go down the stereotypical, oh, both the father and son are at ends because the dad is too controlling and all that jazz. Not to say it can't work, but this is a nice spin-off of stuff and, shows that while the dad has its own feelings on this or that, he is willing to compromise for his son's sake, since it is his son's choice.
It wouldn't even make any sense for them to do that anyway, because, okay, granted, I haven't read the manga, but that's not how things go in the anime anyway.
In the anime, the relation that Speed has with his family, aside from, his, Racer X, brother, whatever, he's just there. I don't remember any particular conflict that they have.
Well, it's the same thing, too. Like, it's the whole thing where he left but the thing is, in the anime... Oh, there you go.
I will also say another... Sorry, go on.
No, the thing... see, here's the thing about... No, I think we're far enough at this point. Okay, here's the other thing, the problem with this movie. The tone. The tone is all over the place. Sometimes we'll have what is supposedly a more serious scene, like the one where they were torturing this kid that they just threw away, right? And that scene was played straight, but then suddenly we go from one extreme to the opposite extreme where now we're being super silly and there's pick one like
Cyclops. He's Racer X, but he really looks like one of the suits that Cyclops had at some point.
Question.
Oh my god, you're right. I'll be honest, I guess for me, I felt like while that scene is darker, it felt so overplayed that it feels over the top enough to fit into.
Also, I do remember some episode of the anime that did add this tone whiplash. Like 1 second, we're doing the. In fact, I remember a couple of the major points that people remember about the joke about the show is that we're having super sad moments, and the second after Speed cracks a joke or something.
Yeah, in the anime, the anime is super insane. And the characters constantly talk over the top, so it's impossible to take anything seriously. Basically, here's the thing. Here's the thing. From what I've heard and what Jova said, apparently this is trying to be more akin to the manga as well, which is why it's not as over the top as the anime is, right? Which again is fine. That's fine. I don't know how the manga is, but when it comes to just in the context of the movie itself, it feels a bit like, to me, the movie is not over the top enough to be hilariously insane, but at the same time, I feel like the more serious aspects are not strong enough to get me invested. So the movie to me is in this awkward middle ground where it doesn't work in either way for me.
Ironically, for me, it's kind of the opposite. I feel like I'm fine with the balance so far. And again, mind you, it's like this. If you prefer the anime, then yeah, you might want to stick with the anime. That said, for me personally, I do like this mix between the anime and apparently the manga's vibes.
Yes,
Again, go on, Dibs.
So, Speed Racer's iconic car is the Mach 5.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, in the races we've seen so far, He's only been driving the Mark 6. This is the Mark 5 now.
Yeah, that's also another thing that I wanted to point it out during the shooting sequence in the scene before this one. So I know that we're still 1/3 in the movie, so obviously it's going to happen before the end. But one thing that one of the major selling points is that the Mark 5 Caro Speed has all sorts of weird technological gadgets. We only see him using one during the race, the jumping quote unquote technique. Don't ask. One instead, Racer X during the shooting actually used a couple of more.
Okay. Question: does anybody here actually read the manga in any capacity?
Jova, I guess.
I have looked into it.
I probably should have done it in preparation to this, so it's my fault for not doing it.
Because I'm actually gonna take a look at it for right now, actually. Because I'm wondering if Speed kills every one of his opponents in the races like he does in the anime. Because that's one of my favorite parts.
Considering he has a sort of a minor recurring rogues gallery, like Oil's Leaker, I think it's called one of them. Maybe not. Maybe some red shirts, I suppose.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. That's what Spritle and Chim Chin do all the time. So there is that.
So from what I can understand, the idea in this movie is that the Mach 6 is Speed's own personal car, his own take, whereas the Mach 5 is like the family heirloom. Which is a take I kind of get. Okay, I'll admit, me personally, I would have just had it be we use the Mach 5 throughout the whole movie. I will say this, though. It does make the bits where we do get the Mach 5 back pretty cool, I'll admit.
Totally not shady, we swear.
I do love how sinister they can make the building of a car out to be.
Also, I was checking here. Apparently, this movie has been in production since 1992 because a person, I think it's a producer, named Joe Pitka, he tried to pitch to Warner Bros. The movie with the idea of Johnny Depp starring in the main role.
I could see it.
Well, again, for 1995, I guess it would have made work, for the time.
Yes, he was a lot younger back then.
But the movie kept being going on and on and on. In September 2000, Warner Bros. And producer Lauren Schuler-Donner hired music video director Hype Williams to take the helm of the project. Then in 2001, the studio hired screenwriter Christian Godegast and Paul Schöring. And eventually, without production getting underway, the director and the writers left the project. In June 2004, Vince Vaughn spearheaded a revival of the project, representing a take of the film. And Vaughn was cast as Racer X and was also attached to the project as executive producer. With production never becoming acting, Vaughn was eventually detached from the project. So we almost got to Vince Vaughn as Racer X.
I don't know if Vince Vaughn having that much pull in the project would have made it better or worse.
I say the same thing that I said for Jurassic, the Lost World Jurassic Park. Vince Vaughn is not an action actor. Don't cast him for roles like this.
Then why did he keep trying to be one?
It's like a reverse. It's like a reverse Bruce Willis, where Bruce Willis was such a fantastic action star, but for some reason fortunately he did prove himself as a capable dramatic actor as well. But for a while he genuinely wanted to try to break off his action movie persona.
To be fair, wasn't that kind of the style for Bruce Willis? Like, he started off first more as a comedy actor, then went to action. So I guess he was trying to go free for free. I mean, but yeah. So okay, another thing that did not help this movie, it sounds like, trouble production. Because holy cow,
this version of the movie only started in production in October 2006 because the Wachowskis were brought on the studio by Joe Silver, who had collaborated with them for V for Vendetta.
Wow, these pictures of sweets look delicious.
I think those are actually real sweets there.
I don't know.
Maybe colored rock candies. I don't know.
All right, let me see.
But yeah, I will say this. I do like the designs of both the Mach 6 and the Mach 5 in this. And I will say this. one thing this live-action adaptation...
Whoa! What's with the zoom in?
All right, I'm looking at chapter 1 of the manga right now, and it looks the anime starts exactly the same. So I can tell you at the very least that they got this part.
I
right,
get the
at least.
idea that they got the basic stuff, like Speed's backstory and his relations.
Yeah, they even have the same. Yeah, they even have the same thing where he jumps from the car into one of the guy's motorbikes and chokes the other guy. Yeah, they even have this here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like, I have no doubts that... Okay, from what I
I get the idea
understand...
what
and from
the
what
anime
I've read-
difference is a lot of extra, like, filler-esque stuff, and the more... Okay, I cannot really guess about the more outdated parts, like, racist depiction of natives, because I'm pretty
obviously,
sure that
yeah, that's terrible. Yeah, but I'll tell you this much too: I do not want a speed racer where, like even if it's technically filler, probably, I don't want to live in a world where Speed doesn't pick up a Tommy gun and kills a bunch of people all at once. That episode is just so insane. It's amazing.
My favourite one's still the one where Speed. That's I'm getting that mixed up with Tintin. But as I say, it's still the one where he wipes out a nation's government.
I know, right? That's what I wanted. Like, imagine I want that. Sorry, go on.
It's not just a sport; it's a
What
religion.
the...
And you're kind of
Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about?
That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, if you want to be over the top, sure, go all out. Have Speed kill people with a Tommy gun. Have Speed take down a government. Go all out.
So yeah, evil British guy.
Wait, is he
Which-
British?
Which has
Yeah,
purple all
Roger.
over the place.
Roger Allen. Yeah, he's British.
No, I mean, it's a character verse, though.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's going for an American accent. Then
It
again,
does
I've been
sound
talking
like...
over it a lot.
Jesus, you're gonna have a
this is-
sugar overdose,
And
Frightle.
this is what happened to the people who saw this in cinemas.
No, Dweebs, this is what happened with the protagonist of Elf.
No. This is what happened with the execs when they saw the box office returns.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to check during the production because there's a lot
they
to
were.
actually skim through. But I do wonder if maybe the Wachowskis actually wanted to be more over the top, but they were potentially screwed over by the studio as a result.
I
again,
guess.
Also, Waluigi, what are you doing here?
So what
Okay,
you're
that
saying,
would not-
So what you're saying, Jova, is that the executives were so upset they gorged themselves on sweets and passed out on their floor.
Well,
Sure.
it's still not as violent as what happened on
And yeah,
Pluto
you can
Nash
tell.
Day.
See, Joe, there's a confirmation why this guy is British. All of his ancestors look like that.
I mean, it's still better than the Hitman a mission in Hitman where you have to kill a prima donna director because he's bankrupting the movie studio.
Also, actual stock footage, I guess.
Okay, see, I'm looking at chapter 6 right now, and yes, Speed in one fell swoop kills most of the racers that are racing against them. So that's not an anime thing, that's a manga thing. I just got confirmation, guys.
Wait, when did we
Also-
ever think that was an anime thing
well,
exclusively?
keep in mind, this is my first time reading the manga, so I didn't know.
Again, from what I've read from the manga, it does have crazy moments from the anime. It's just not okay. It's not that it doesn't go to the levels of the anime. It's just that it doesn't go as consistently to the levels.
I can
as
imagine.
The anime.
I can imagine.
Which, okay, and I think I kind of get why the anime. Well, okay, the anime, like any anime, does have more of a budget in mind that it needs to keep. So I can get why they may have skimmed off some of the quieter moments and focused more just on the absolute insanity of Speed, whereas the manga
course, the fucking
probably had
stocks.
more room to mix everything in.
After the Resident Evil movie, I'm just compelled to immediately be repulsed when a villain's motivation is about my market share.
Yeah, they
At
had-
least here
sorry.
it makes sense because Speed is.
What?
Sorry,
God, I love
Dweebs.
this.
Okay.
Okay.
They're on the sugar high, but yes, that British villain. Okay, the CEO. His name is literally Royalton.
Okay, I don't remember an equivalent of him in the series. Was he made? Was a character made for this movie?
Is this that song
Let
from?
me
There
check.
were times where Speed was actually approached by rich people in order
Yes.
to work for them, but I don't remember if any one of them stick out. stuck
That
out.
song, that song earlier, I think that was they later used that song in Kingsman during the church scene.
Was that also composed by Michael Giacchino?
No, it was
Oh,
two other guys,
okay.
Henry Jackman and Matthew Morrison.
In the meantime, just two things. One, the episode where Speed throws one of the racers into a volcano and then has to save him. That's also here in the manga. So far, this seems to be matching up pretty well. But I'm like Jova said, I can imagine it deviates at some point. But to actually get back to this movie specifically, because I think we're far enough. Okay, let's just ignore them. I'm going to put the manga and the anime aside and just judge the movie purely on its own merits right now.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Like, I've already explained the weird editing and the seizure-inducing effects that we see sometimes here and there. Here yeah, but
Sorry,
evil British guy, too. I mean...
I guess so far I can tell that to me he's the best part of the movie.
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wish all the characters spoke in an over-the-top way like this.
Not just that, also his motivation. He's not even trying to hide it.
Exactly. But yeah,
Segue.
here's the thing. The movie hasn't done a good job, again, on its own merits. Again, let's pretend for a moment that we haven't read or don't know anything about the source material, right? The movie hasn't done a good job in making the character...
Really?
Yes, why not?
Yeah, it looks like some comedy Johnny.
It kind of does, actually. It kind of does, actually. The movie, in my opinion, didn't do a good enough job getting me invested in the characters because the plot moves way too fast. The characters, the way they're written, they're very, very underdeveloped and very one-note. They're not particularly interesting. Which, again, that would be fine if the comedy/insanity was there to pick the slack up, but it's not really doing it for me either. And whoa! Jova, stop this crazy thing!
Baby, ride round like a speed racer and a grab face to face.
Oh, and I guess we transition directly to Mount Fuji.
Welcome to the cutscene for the Speed Racer ride.
Look,
Actually, was there a tie-in video game to this?
Yes, on the Wii.
I really wish in the races we had Speed killing the racers because that was always some of the most unintentionally hilarious bits.
That's something that I noticed. For this movie specifically, they're trying to portray Speed in the basic, pure hero type of archetype, as in he's incorruptible.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, the hilarity of the anime comes back from the fact that even in the anime, he claims to do so. But then he pushes people off the race.
So, okay, my best guess as to why they're doing this is that, yes, in the original material, we are clearly supposed to root for Speed as a hero, or at the very least, nobody who's not the bad guy.
Okay, someone got killed at the
All
very least.
right, there you go. That is one.
Oh, there you go.
I just wanted to do more though, like kill everybody, because I'm not kidding. Spill literally kills so many people in every race. It's
I mean, okay, admittedly, if a lot of the races just boil down to Speed outwits and kills everyone just like that, I can see how that may take away from some of the stakes for people, whereas they probably want the races... Oh, there's another two.
There's another one. Okay, fine.
Okay, bye.
I love how that guy's just laughing at it.
It's like that guy in Jurassic World when everyone is running away in panic and this guy wants to get his margaritas for some reason.
Help me. Like, was it Speed specifically who killed those people that we just saw?
He calls that because the guy was trying to actually surpass him, but Speed actually, took him away, knocked him.
All right then. Yeah,
the thing is that, again, we are not seeing him using his gadget so far, but again, I'm guessing they're reserved for the climax.
Oh, there you go.
So.
They just used one, actually, I think.
No, I think it's another guy that did it. He anchored the... Bye!
The spear hook. Yeah, that was actually foreshadowed.
Yeah, I can definitely see these sequences being obnoxious if you're watching them in 3D because they probably would throw the cars at you constantly. And
So wait, is this a flash?
Now the movie's high again.
I probably I know it's not super fair, but they probably should have brought some alcohol for this.
Okay. If I understand correctly, what we were basically seeing was a visualization of what the bad guy is saying will happen.
Boy, too. Let me check what this guy also did. I'm loving him.
Yeah.
He's done
I
a lot of
mean-
British TV shows.
Oh yeah, like I'll be honest.
He's the only one who's behaving like a natural Speed Racer character.
I feel
Roger
like
Allam. I think Racer X is pretty much in character too, technically.
I mean, in terms of
too.
over the topness. I mean, in terms of
Oh,
over the
okay, was
topness.
also in V for Vendetta. Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger's Tides.
Oh, nice.
Oh, was he Mr. Holmes? Oh, the Book Thief. Oh, he's also in the Tetris movie. Also, a lot of TV stuff, like we've said.
Is that?
Oh, I feel like I recognize that actor.
Have a
Let's
look.
see. Ben Burns. Yeah, Richard Roundtree. Oh my God! Yeah, that's Shaft.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
I know I've said a lot of bad things about this movie so far, but okay, I think this might just slightly be a better movie than Steel that he was in.
You think? The special effects are better than Steel. That's
Yeah.
technically not saying much.
Well, to be fair, that movie came out in '94, so
97.
Oh, 97. Well, even still,
even for
still.
1997, the practical effects for the steel suit are a joke.
Oh, they are.
That's the-
They are, yeah.
Yeah, no, honestly, I feel like most of the cast is working for me.
Yeah,
like,
we haven't
there
talked
some
much
are-
about. Let me check.
Oh no,
Sorry.
the cast themselves are fine.
Like, I feel like those that need to be over the top are over the top at certain points. Speed himself is over the top, but in a different sense. Not like, yelling over the top like he was in the anime, but he is definitely still stuck in that heroic mentality. Like, I don't care if you're offering me more money than God. It's not about the true spirit and all that.
We haven't talked much about the mechanic of the racer family, Sparky. This movie is played by Kikaguri, which was it was in a lot of movies, but trying to recognize stuff. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm seeing here too.
He
Yeah,
was in Jupiter Ascending, so he's slightly recurring for the Wachowskis. Also Sense8, so yeah. And was also in Ninja Tomorrow in 2014. Yes.
More recently, Roger Allam was in that Tetris film.
Yeah, like I mentioned. Yes, Pedro.
also too, I'm seeing, I'm reading the official English release of the manga, and he's called Speed Racer here too. So officially,
that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
this is his official English name.
Yeah, like what I said. I did said that it was in all of the media.
Well, in
in
that case, by this point, they it would be off-brand for them to name him something else in here in English.
I suppose maybe there's also a copyright thing that I don't know about.
Like, it would kind of be the equivalent of suddenly shifting Ace Attorney from America to Japan, despite
I
the
mean, I
fact
wouldn't
that,
mind a complete retranslation as a patch, but that's just me.
I mean, at this point, the localization has its charm. If you wanted,
It's more a case of it's already too entrenched and would be too costly for Capcom to do it.
that too, yeah. But I like what they did with the localization, and I like that they've committed to it. Heck, they even gave it its own lore, too.
Yeah, kind of like how Bowser is still called Bowser in the West, despite his actual name being King Koopa.
Also, what the hell happened to Spritle?
I don't know how you feel about the situation, Joel, but I kind of wish Sega had committed to the Robotnik name, honestly.
They did. I mean, he still is. His full name is still Dr. Ivo Eggman Robotnik.
No, nowadays, especially, Frontiers fixed that is true, but at the same time, there was a good period where the name Robotnik wouldn't even show up in the games at all.
Let me check something quickly because I want to make a comparison with something that came out potentially around this time for this movie.
I wonder, do you think they brought back the Robotnik thing for good after the success of the first Sonic movie, which definitely refers
probably.
to him more so as Robotnik?
Okay,
Probably, yeah.
I technically showed this movie so far only to Deji, so I don't know if any of you have actually seen it, but otherwise I definitely recommend it. In 2009, a racing anime was released as a movie, not even an OVA, I think proper movie called Redline, which is very, very insane too. Actually, I think gave it a 9 out of 10 when I actually showed it to him. And I can tell you it's probably a better successor to Speed Racer, probably, than this movie. That's not to say I cannot, again, like I said, I cannot judge this movie in its entirety for the time being, but I can tell you from what I've been seeing Redline, I can tell you that one so far is carried over. This close-up...
I think one of the best ways to describe Redline is wacky racers, but anime.
I can tell that this can have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, John Goodman is clearly here just to get the paycheck, however. Not to say that he's a bad performance, but you can tell that similar to stuff like Danny DeVito in that 2006, certain actors that are famous are just here for the paycheck.
Yeah, I actually have something to say about Papa, actually. Because I've just given a good look at the early chapters. And Papa is also over the top in the manga too, from what I'm seeing here. So, and I feel like Papa...
What do you describe by over the top in the manga specifically?
Like he screams in the face of the villains and stuff like that.
Being over exaggerated movement and shouting, I guess, Jova.
Yeah, shouting.
Since this movie was made in Germany, they got a German actor to play Inspector Detective, Benno Furman. He's mainly known for being in a few German movies, and he's also the German voice for Puss in Boots and Shrek.
Oh,
also,
cool.
Pedro, I'm guessing what he wanted to say is that while John Goodman is a good is good for casting appearance-wise, he's not delivering properly in the tone.
No. John Goodman, I can see John Goodman being a great Papa if given the right direction. John Goodman is not the problem. I love John Goodman. Here's the thing. Let me try to explain what I mean. In the anime, and from what I'm seeing here in these chapters that I'm reading right now in the manga, Papa is a character who is a bit exaggerated and does scream quite a bit. Again, a cartoon character, basically, right? John Goodman's... not John Goodman. Like, the way the Wachowskis characterize Papa in here, though, he's very underplayed in comparison to his source material counterpart. And
that's a thing that I'm saying for almost the entire family. The entire family is probably played a bit more seriously, possibly for the sake of having the plot going forward, I guess.
I feel like the family are fine. I think part of the reason we don't see Pop and Ma be played up as much is probably because the focus is more so on Speed, his little brother, and his love interest than the parents in that.
And like
regard.
I said, I still have to skim through to see, if this was entirely to blame the Wachowskis. Maybe some producers interfered and were like, no, we need to play this more straight because otherwise the audience wouldn't get it, or some shit like that.
Also, another thing to keep in mind with the manga, Pedro, you are kind of skimming. There are probably also those quiet moments.
Oh, no. I'm not saying there aren't quiet moments. But I can tell you that the opening episode of the anime is and the chapter for certain are the same. So yeah, we have Papa here being over the top here. Like,
what's with the filter?
It's to show.
That's the thing. If it was for the entire scene, I get it. But it's just for when we cut back to Speed.
Oh, that's probably just the light reflecting off the canopy. And I have to kill people.
Yeah, again, I think that encapsulates the idea of the movie taking itself a bit too seriously. Speed saying, "Oh, this isn't a game. Things are getting too rough." Almost like he's trying to sound a bit like Shadow the Hedgehog.
Admittedly, that is something Speed would totally say in the anime too.
Let me put it this way, Pedro. Sorry, let me put it this way, Jova. Sorry.
Go on.
Let me put it this way, Jova. He would. But he would also do it in almost an unintentional comedic way. See, like I said, I get the vibe that whoever was responsible for the changes applied to the movie had the thought process of the over-the-topness was a thing from the 60s. Nowadays, these are modern times, so we need to play things more straight.
I will agree that has sadly been a problem in a lot of adaptations, even to this day. And I do it to... Well, again, we don't know for certain, but like Tio, I have to wonder, was there any chance that there was executive
that's what I'm trying to check.
I'm looking
let me check the producers of this in the meantime. three producers, well, okay, technically four. The Wachowskis themselves, Joel Silver, like I said, the person whom they work with
The Matrix
before
movies
Vendetta, and
as
also
well.
before Vendetta, and Grant Hill, who was a producer since the 90s, also for The Matrix and before Vendetta. So technically the producers are, basically acquainted with the Wachowskis. So I get the idea it might genuinely be like a collective effort, no matter whose decisions was it, unless it was someone on the higher ups of Warner Bros. Telling them, but it feels still very odd.
Perhaps eventually what happened of this movie could reveal some...
Because I'm trying to think, like I
details.
said, there was technically a bit of a difference in time, but both Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending also have, moments that should feel over the top, and sometimes they are, like the go scene, but otherwise have stories that are completely played almost in a complete dry kind of tone. Not necessarily always for the worst. Oh, so cool, the gadget, finally.
That's the thing.
I like that.
That's why I've always said that Robert Rodriguez, in my opinion, would have been a better pick to direct a Speed Racer movie instead of the Wachowskis. Because if you look at the Wachowskis' work prior to this movie, they've always had this issue, kind of like because when you look at the first Matrix, for example. Well, my problem with the first Matrix is that the humans act almost as cold and mechanical as the machines do. So, which again,
I forget, did they ever reveal if that was intentional?
Not to my knowledge. And even if it was, how about this? Even if it was, let's just say it was intentional for the sake of argument. I still think it is a problem because it makes the human characters cold and uninviting, which
remind Jova, if it was a case where they did that in the Matrix, which in order to not attract attention to the machines, that would be clever, but that would require that would require them to instead feel more natural while they're in Zion, and something like that happens, I think, in Reloaded at least. Is someone pissing on the tomb?
No, it's a fountain.
No, it's a fountain.
Oh, okay.
They do that.
No, they do it, just with the way it was framed.
I mean, I don't know about your country too, but in my country we even have fountains of just a person pissing water.
Yeah, particularly angels. Yes,
so,
I know.
So that's not really.
No, it's the classic costume. Also the plagues tends to be outside of the range of the water in ours.
Mm-hmm.
Hello there. Yeah, again, that was a thing technically in the source material. The idea that the races could take place in every potentially extravagant, exotic place,
like a volcano,
no matter how weird and implausible it would be, just for the sake of the thrill.
I'm actually reading the Fire Race chapter right now. Go on, Jova.
I think where I would place this movie on the spectrum so far is it feels like it's somewhere in an awkward middle between an executive manhandled adaptation that feels nothing like the original, or between something like the One Piece Netflix show, which actually does feel like a good, faithful one. I'd say it's leaning more so towards One Piece because I do at least get the feeling that heart was put into this. Now, the issue is, I don't know if all the right heart was put into this.
Also, Pedro, you kept mentioning Robert Rodriguez. Again, we're taking only halfway through, but would you take the Alita Battle Angel movie over this?
I'm actually going to be controversial. Well, not controversial. It's still controversial, actually. I'm going to be controversial and say that I prefer this movie over Alita Battle Angel, actually.
Yeah, Alita Battle Angel, okay, I can say a lot of things.
Myself.
All right, I can say a lot of things about this movie. But one thing this movie is not is boring.
Yeah.
Alita Battle Angel.
Let me put it this way, Jova. And I understand that there's a lot of people on the internet that want at all costs for everybody to love that movie. I understand. I'm not unaware of that. Trust me. But as someone who's actually familiar with the manga,
that was cool.
Oh, it was. Yeah, I will give it that.
Right. I should point out, yes. Now he's using the actual Mach 5.
And I noticed that there was the montage where all the cars were actually.
Is that a cartoon horn?
Yes.
Oh God, Nickelodeon Gak.
Which, to be fair, it is something that the original source material, if I remember, did not do that much. It was mostly Speed and Racer X who had the gadgets. So the idea that everyone getting them, I guess it's an interesting take.
It does help there be more stakes, I feel.
Yeah, just to finish answering Jova. Let me put it this way, Jova. As someone who actually is familiar with the Battle Angel manga, the movie misses completely the point of a lot of characters and what the story is about. But again, I would have to basically derail this commentary to explain properly, so let's just leave it at that.
I guess I'll just wonder what Rodriguez was thinking, but that's probably something we can discuss when we finally commented on
Actually,
that movie.
Jova, I don't blame Robert Rodriguez. I blame James Cameron instead, because he's the one who was the head producer, creative, and writer. But again,
writer, but yeah.
But again, I don't want to derail this commentary. Let's continue.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and I will say this. When we get to these points, yes, I do love this movie legit. I did like these moments when we originally commented on them, and I still like them now. Like, yeah, some of the effects don't look the best, but I love how this is pure Speed Racer. We have hired goons, over-the-top characters with money in their eyes. Like, no, this is Speed Racer at its best.
Sure.
Now,
I like it when it goes like this. Again, more of this. Do more. In fact, go even further.
Heimdall, what happened to you?
In fact. Sorry, go on.
Yes, I will absolutely agree with you that I love they bribe them with meat and furs instead. But yeah, I will agree with Pedro that, again, even though I find myself liking this movie more, I will say, I do wish that the movie was this consistently over the top. And this is just pure Speed Racer.
Keep
like,
in mind,
he's even got the Mach 5 and outfit.
This was 7 years before Mad Max Fury Road, so probably the concept for Hollywood of a movie that's on a almost continuous chasing was probably unheard of, and they thought, no, we need to have we don't do a pace with scenes where characters are talking more and more, in much more quiet moments.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if that's the case. And yes, I love it. Sword fighting wheels. He has a replaceable air tire and everything.
Also, everybody, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm showing my co-commentators right now the race from Kappa-Tech. Invitation from Kappa-Tech. How about this, Jova? Look at that page I just posted. There's literally a race where a fucking monster is chasing the racers. Why can't we have something like that in this movie? Like, because the manga and the anime are so delightfully insane. Just more. I want more insanity.
Because, it's also weird because Tatsunoko Production, while it did had some degree of over-the-top stuff with Yattaman and to an extent also Kiyashana, I suppose, Speed Racer definitely was the most insane that actually they got.
See, here's the thing. Sorry, go on.
Here seems to be a general rule of thumb with this movie. I feel like this scene in particular is probably the best scene in the movie because, one, it uses variation in the places for the cars to go, as opposed to the start, which was generally restricted to a racetrack. Typical for cars, yes, but not always typical for Speed Racer. Two, I feel like the car fight choreography is, while over the top, I'd argue the most well coordinated here. In the sense that it is madness, yes, but it's madness that the audience can follow without potentially getting sick, for the most part. And third, and I cannot stress this enough, he's in the Mach 5 with a classic outfit. Finally, yes, I love this, thank you, God.
Although on the subject of Speed Racer, I gotta say, I'm not really sold on Emil Hirsch, to be honest.
Yeah, like I said, he's trying to be way too serious for his own good. I guess it's a case of took the movie too seriously.
You're in a film called Speed Racer.
Oh my God.
You're filming it on a green screen. You're hardly interacting with anything.
I'm sorry, am I playing Vigilante 8 right now or something?
Yes.
No, not the bees! Not the bees!
No, that's exactly it. That's what I'm saying. You see, you see what I mean?
What the fuck?
You punched him in midair. That was beautiful.
I know, right? See, here's the thing. The writing in your movie, Wachowskis, is not strong enough to make this a compelling story. Therefore, abandon all hope of drama and just go all out and go insane all the time. That's
You know what? I agree. Like, whether or not I end up liking this movie or not, I'll agree. It's best when it's just being insane.
just embrace
Like,
it. Embrace it. Have fun.
Now, that being said, I do wonder if Tio's onto something that how Hollywood and film execs were at the time.
I'm still reading the
Wachowskis.
production stuff. I'll get to that in a second. The one thing I noticed, however, is that since this movie came out, almost everyone in the cast has been actually open up to getting into a sequel. And as of 2018, the person called Hirsch did mention, stating in a tweet, that technically a sequel script has been written. Now, I don't think Zaslav is really the kind of person who will probably greenlit that, so probably we'll have to wait until he's gone to see that other chance. But and I don't really think we might get it unless they want to do the whole, distant sequel that cashes in on Nostalgia Dawn like 10 years later, that normally is happening these days.
Uh-oh. Surprise, Pops! But, yeah, no, honestly, yeah, I do get the feeling that the cast all had fun with this.
Oh no,
like-
that I can agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be Snake Oiler.
Cute.
I might. I'm.
Hydro.
In fact, watching this is giving me deja vu of when I was watching the entire anime with Dwibs and Tail. Like I might pick that for a show commentary the next time, maybe just for the hell of it.
Let me see. In the meantime, the producer wanted to make a movie that was not a rated R. Visual effect designer John Gaeta won Academy Award for Best Effects with The Matrix, was brought in to help conceive.
Also, can we please at least have at least one character, at least one say, "Oh."
Oh, yeah, turning awkwardly at the camera. I was like,
Okay. Admittedly, that would have to be a little reference gag because the reason they said "oh" a lot was to mainly
Because
make
in
up
the
for
original
the dubbing
scene,
at the time.
yeah, in the original scene, they did not really explain too much because, again, that's the whole minimalism versus over-explain type of argument, where a lot of products, when they get exported, need what they want to actually feel in the scene if they were not supposed to say anything.
How about this? You could have it in context. You could have you could have Sprite say it during one of his sugar highs because it would be
There are many ways to make. Again, is a test of bye. There are many. There's a way of making a reference. It's an argument that's been still argued even more relevantly today. The fact that a lot of movies.
Let me comment on this scene. See, this scene is meant to be more down to earth and be a bit more heartfelt. But all I can think is, can we get back to the insane over the top races, please?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay.
And they're also
That is-
discussing
I don't really
something
care
we
about
already
this. I don't know about you, Joe, but I still don't care about this. Sorry.
No, Pedro. Pedro, I agree with you. Like, that is one thing I felt even during the original commentary is like, again, it's even one of my gripes with Lone Ranger 2013, a movie I love. Like, when that movie hits, it really does hit. But it does show you that the strengths are definitely when they're going over the top. And mind you, I am not saying that they were doomed to, busted. It's about family.
About
king of-
armor.
Okay, a Speed Racer and Fast and Furious crossover.
At this point, I guess, why not?
I mean, they're both over the top. I mean, why not?
How sad is it that you could argue Fast and Furious has actually become even more over the top than Speed Racer at this point? Like, I don't know if Speed ever went to space.
Wait, and nor did had the super soldier.
Jova, let me put it this way. Speed did not go to space, but honestly,
Might as well.
if it came to that, my reaction would be, sure, why not at this point?
I'm actually still wonder why Speed was not included in the roster of Tatsunoko versus Capcom. Maybe a rights issue or something.
Maybe they couldn't figure out how to make a fighting move set for him because
It was done by Nitsuma, the guy who did Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I'm pretty sure they could have come up something for him.
Maybe.
And if I recall correctly, we were supposed to have Phoenix in that game as well.
Phoenix and Francisca at the same time, yes, as a battle couple.
If I remember correctly, I think this chapter was not in the anime. Let me double check.
Anyway,
the one with the
producer
monster.
Joe Silver describes Spears as a family film in line with Wachowskis' goal to reach a wider audience. However, contrary to the apparent mainstream appeal of the project, the directors decided to take the source material in an avant-garde direction, declaring, quote-unquote, okay, we're going to assault every single modern aesthetic with this film.
Yeah.
Wow. According to Lana,
They know
representative
their priorities, I
Warner Bros.
guess.
Were initially gleeful that the directors chose to take on a known entity that seemed like a family movie for kids, but when executives reviewed the work in progress, they were like, oh my god, are you insane? What are you doing? This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And we're like, yes, that's the reason we're making it. For the Wachowskis, the project presented a unique opportunity to experiment with techniques of postmodernist cinema, as they believed the film's younger target audience would be more receptive to radical experimentalism than adults. Let me see. There's an interview with Lana, but maybe I'll read it later. Of course, assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like in that Chaser video game, and they call it the Yakuza. What is he dropping a spider?
They took some inspiration from James from
Poison.
You
Okay.
Only Live Twice. Hang on, this is too easy.
I'm going.
I love how they're keeping his face shrouded in darkness.
And now
See, this is a better way of concealing "quote unquote" Racer X's face. It's just that because of the actor's physique, it's very hard to not do it for the audience.
Admittedly, this movie does have one last trick in that regard. I think we did eventually see Racer X's face in the anime. Like, I think it was closer near like the tail end or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We interrupt this Speed Racer movie to bring you The Matrix.
Yeah.
Why not?
Oh, never mind. I think it's in. Was it?
Did you know his music even sounds like he's trying to channel Don Davis?
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's gonna leave a mark.
for kids. Like, just because you don't show blood, that doesn't mean he's less violent. Jesus.
So in that regard, Tio, going off of that interview, what would you say in regards to the whole executive meddling?
That's what I'm trying to get, because there's a fuck ton of lot of it I still have to read, and I don't want to occupy the movie time. Maybe I'll read it before the final thoughts.
I'm actually. Beautiful.
No. Well, the fact that ninja tanked a crotch shot says something.
Ooh.
See, here's the thing, Jova. I don't know how long it's been since you saw the anime. You know what would happen if this was the anime? Speed would jump like a fucking grasshopper in a very over-the-top and really cool way.
I think the fight choreography that just happened with Sparky was at least close to that.
It was.
Yeah.
What?
Alright, so now this is more like it. Go on. We could do with and they're even doing the anime speed lines, so...
Cute.
Like...
Maybe using sound effects. Oh no. Oh no. If there's one thing you don't want is to be actually beaten the shit out of from John Goodman, Jesus.
Oh, literally pile drive too.
All right, never mind. I
What
guess
was that line, Pedro, from the Blind Side?
you're gonna have to be more specific.
Oh.
You heard my son. You
Okay.
want us all to
Okay. You threaten my son. You threaten me. See now
Turning him
that
into
see now
Alex.
see now this is source material, Papa. More of this, please.
Whoa.
See the thing is,
Pizza?
see that's exactly it. Like Papa does this kind of thing all the time in the anime and the manga. So I really wish we had more of this. You know.
Wee!
Wee.
None.
That is such a dad joke. I'm all for it.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think I have the trajectory with this movie. It has the ingredients. Hell, I'd argue it pulls it off at moments. The issue is just that it is trying to balance its more core and definitely media fateful moments with the more down-to-earth moments, which, don't get me wrong, some of those moments worked, but I'll admit, I'm watching Speed Racer for the more over-the-top stuff.
So,
Like,
yeah,
it's
right.
not even that the down-to-earth stuff is bad. It's just, well, it's not as good as when this movie really reaches its heights.
So
So,
Taija
yeah,
is out of commission.
So yeah, in plot B, this guy is in better
Taija.
state, so can't compete. So what do we do?
Wait, why did you say plot B?
It feels like there's like three plots going on: the conspiracy, Speed Racer trying to find out his brother, the whole
I mean, when
Boylton
you-
stuff.
I'd argue that if you pay attention, it all fits together well, seeing as how they are all tied to essentially the race tournament.
Also, I haven't checked yet. Who's played who is the mafia boss being played by?
I think his actor sadly passed away a few years ago.
I can't imagine, considering he looks already a bit old in this. Ta-da!
In the meantime,
The late John Benfield.
okay then.
Surprise! It was Trixie in that car.
Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
What he did.
Interesting.
If I remember correctly,
Oh,
in the
I've seen it before. Actually, he was in the Name of the Father.
also
101
Wonder
Dalmatians.
Dalmatians.
Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle.
I was
Also,
actually about to bring something about the source material too, but I'll let you go first.
Well, I was about to ask because I did forgot. I don't remember, so I don't know about this statement. But did Trixie in the anime or the manga, got to actually pilot for a while herself?
No. Not in
So I
the
guess
not
it
in the
is-
anime at least. Maybe
so
in
I
the
guess
manga.
this is the Wachowskis trying to be a bit more progressive.
Sure. That's fine by me. I don't have a problem with that specifically. I mean, Trixie was actually one of the more boring characters, even in the anime.
Yeah, again, as a typical product of the 60s, Trixie was basically just, the I forgot even, like the girl.
Love interest?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the supportive love interest for Speed.
She existed
Just
only
like
to be
Speed.
there to support Speed. She doesn't really do much, sadly.
So I guess to give this movie credit, it does do more. It does give Trixie more to do, at least.
Yes.
Or at least find a good excuse to do it.
Oh my.
Oh, here it is. All right.
Phrasing, my dude, phrasing.
I actually had something to bring
No,
up
no,
about
no.
the source material too, but I might still have to check something, so go ahead.
Actually, I might as well check it myself because I'm curious. I might have actually asked this during the original commentary, but I want to be curious. Like, what was the reception in Japan of this? Let me see.
Considering Astro Boy 2009 was a flop in Japan, I'm guessing this one probably didn't do much better.
I mean, to be fair, Astro Boy 2009 had other stuff going against it, like what it was going up against at the time. And, like, I'll admit, Japan seems to have...
Oh, actually, okay. What I was checking, I don't.
If this was
I haven't
Speed
seen-
Racer in the anime, he would have taken him out.
I haven't seen.
Yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't
to
seem
be
to
fair,
report
that's
here on
a recurring-
Wikipedia about Japanese reception. But I have to correct a small mistake from before. The movie actually was nominated for one Razzie, specifically worst prequel, remake, ripoff, or sequel. Who actually won at that time? Because this one did not won. Let me see. Of course, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull won. To be fair, the other candidates were Star Wars: The Clone Wars, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the one with Keanu Reeves, and Disaster Movie along with Meet the Spartans. So, I don't know. This was a tough one.
Well, there's the Tommy guns.
Yeah, I think I got that.
Oh no, poor Racer X.
How will Racer X get out of this one?
Damn.
Of course. Yeah, like I said, the Sprite and Chim Chim tend to do this. To arrive at as a sort of a Deus Ex Machina. Great, we did need a scene where Chim Chim throws shit. Or I guess it's supposed to be a candy bar, maybe. Hopefully.
Okay, yeah, we had a pretty good fight scene earlier. Now we've got this.
Yeah, this is a good fight scene.
I feel like it's more so the editing that's can be a bit hard on the eyes.
Work.
You know what? That's fair. A little too much on the blur.
What year was 300? I think 2004?
2007, I think.
Still before this. And I think that one had a better idea of, not necessarily one take, but, the slow-mo type of action scene.
Could you imagine Zack Snyder directing
I was about to say, no, I still wouldn't probably have wanted Zack Snyder to...
no, thank you.
Like Pedro said multiple times, unless he was relegated to the cinematography alone, no. Because I get the idea Zack Snyder would be the guy that turns Speed into a character that said, fuck Japan or something.
Yeah.
I'd say if it's Zack Snyder pre-Wonder Woman 2017... He did still help make that movie, so he earns his credits there. But
true, Jova, but again, it would make the movie even more serious and dour. Like, this is still supposed to be a comedy despite the action.
Let's say Day of the Dead era Zack Snyder. Then.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, and fun fact about the source material, actually, because I just discovered this from reading the Fire Race chapter.
There goes Speed with
they got the guns.
But Mexican standoff, I guess.
Oh, it's just like in Matrix Revolutions at the beginning, in the bar.
Oh yeah, shoot, we got that race to deal with. Go Speed Racer! Go Speed Racer!
Get it?
Go Speed Racer, go!
Get it? Mach, go, go, go. That's the name of the manga.
Okay.
But
Sorry, go on.
No, but no, and yeah, here's the thing. Like, I actually, when I saw this monster here in the manga, I was like, okay, I actually don't remember this one. Let me double check. And
I
yes,
remember, an anime
yeah,
with that.
That turns out, Tail, this gigantic monster in the Fire Race chapter, this is a manga exclusive. Why the hell they left this out of the anime is beyond me, because I would love to see this chapter animated.
Like I said, Speed Racer was probably the most wild Tatsunoko production, but Yatamen did have giant robots.
Yeah. Like, I'll say this.
It's a devil cave, the one that killed, quote unquote, the brother of Speed.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I mean, so far the level over the topness is seeming to match for me so far.
Okay. I know.
As for why,
I know a common critique of movies around this time was a lot of things are just too washed out and there's not enough color in them. But I think the Wachowskis with this movie is like, oh yeah, You think there's not enough color in movies nowadays? Watch us. We'll show you color in
Well,
movies.
like I said before, Dweebs, their initial statement was literally about we're gonna like to assault the. Let me check what the exact quote. Whoa, we're going to assault every single modern aesthetic with this film.
Anyway, as for why they didn't kill Snake yet, Dibs, well, to be fair, narratively, that would end the race beforehand. And secondly, Snake, if I recall correctly, is supposed to be one of the recurring villains.
Also, I do seem to remember at least a couple of episodes of the anime that had a situation like this, where Speed is actually thrown off the race, but has to actually gain terrain from outside of the normal, road.
Yes.
Using the gadgets and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. Good old Mach 5.
Question. Well, I know Taylor has seen it because I've shown it to him a few years ago. Jove, have you seen the Dexter's Laboratory episode that's a Speed Racer spoof? Because that's one of my favorite episodes because they do such a fantastic job spoofing the anime. It's amazing.
Again, Gendy Tartakovsky sure loves anime himself.
Sure. My name is Mandok, and I'm Dexter's rival. He and I compete and they even speak super fast and everything. It's so great.
Oh shoot, he's got a gun!
Your older sister, and of course, Dee of all people is Racer D, not Racer X, Racer D.
Also, of course, the bulletproof glass. That was another thing, I think.
I also love how over the top it is that in the Dexter's Laboratory version, Racer D supposedly loses her life to just hitting a turtle in the middle of the racetrack.
Bye!
Bye, Snake. Dun, 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 dun.
It's okay, we saw his parachute.
Snake! Snake!
No, it's alright, he's got a parachute.
Which, okay, if they were planning to save him for the sequel, that's good, because if there's one thing I do get tired of in live-action adaptations, it's them going, oh, here's this iconic villain. Let's kill him. Oh, wait, he got to do it? Is he about... Yes, he did the pose!
Stocks.
My market share. Yeah, remember the British villain?
Remember, well, he's the one who's been apparently pulling the strings behind everything bad going on.
So why is he saying, get me Tetsuya Toga-kan, then?
He's got a plan.
Well, let's see. Well, again, movie's not over yet. We're taking 2/3 in. Gee, you must be very fun at party acts. Oh my god, these transitions. I'm starting to ponder.
Boy.
Sorry.
So it turns out Toga-kan is actually owned by Royalton.
Of course, corporate takeover to an extent. So I had to wonder now which transitions. To be fair, I was trying to guess which transition might be, worse between these and the ones from Hulk 2003. But the thing about it is that the transition in this one seems to be more consistent. At least there's like one major type, the wipe. One instead in Hulk 2003, we get all sorts of stuff in order to try to emulate the comic book panel, as in multiple panels going on at the same time, freeze frame with transitions to another scene. So, no, Ang Lee had a more diverse kind of vision, I suppose.
I can imagine.
Oh, there you go.
Good.
There you go. He's literally going to buy out Toku-kan, essentially.
Hostile takeover.
I'm sad that I will never get to see a live-action take of Speed picking up a Tommy gun and killing 100 people.
I guess to be fair,
Toga-kan was working for the bad guy.
all the time. Well, I guess, it had to be expected to some extent.
And now apparently it's revealed that Tokugan
Also, we really are having a top 10 saddest anime betrayals moment.
pretty much, yeah.
Also, I think I remember also this scene from the anime, the idea that, well, for a different context, Speed is actually pissed off and Racer X basically has to calm him down and
Hey,
teach him a lesson.
why are you hitting me, man? I didn't
Because
know he was-
Literal
Speed is
road
edgy
rage.
now.
Okay,
Well-
literal road rage.
Well, to be fair, Tail, in the anime, Speed picks up a gun, and I mean a realistic gun, and shoots a whole bunch of people. So
forgot.
technically, you can consider Speed edgy.
There was a sequence where he basically blasts off. Oh, there you go, a metal door, but I don't remember what he uses to do it.
Oh, here's a bit. There's a YouTube video by Solid JJ called "Speed Racer and the Second Amendment," and the thumbnail even says "literal psychopath."
Oh.
Like I said, even the anime, they barely made an attempt to cover that. So them trying, the Wachowskis trying to throw a bit of a curveball here kind of makes sense. So let's take a look.
However, let's see.
Like I said, curveball.
It's just some
Not
guy.
him.
Jason Statham.
Wow.
That'd been funny.
That's because Paul W.S. Anderson around the same time was doing the Death Race 2000 reboot, which had Jason Statham in it.
Okay, now how this went in the anime, and this is one thing I do recall actually, is like he deduces Racer X to be his brother. Racer X beats him up and leaves him unconscious, but Speed comes to and still puts two and two together and deduces that Racer X must be his brother. Pedro, you remember the whole anime better than me. Does Racer X finally just come clean and say, actually, yeah, I am your brother, in spite of knocking out his brother?
If I remember correctly, in the manga, he does at some point. I've heard about that at least, but if in the anime, we never actually get to that point. If I
I don't
remember
think so,
correctly.
because if I recall correctly, the anime doesn't even have an actual, final episode.
No, it just stops. My guess
So
is
it's literally, so Racer X is literally just a dick who knocks out his brother because he doesn't want to admit that Speed was right on the money.
It was admittedly a sad common thing when it came to manga adaptation at the time, because, again, if you watch a YMS review of Kimba the White Lion, you know that the original series that Tezuka did only announced the first half of the franchise, so be clear it stops too.
well, to be fair to you,
That's kind of ironic.
well,
when I
okay.
get to the point where Kimba flipping dies.
Well, here's the thing, Teo. To be fair, right after that, he made Leo the Lion, which covers the other half.
Yeah, and to be fair, the conclusion, like Jova said, is actually done in the 1997 OVA.
Yeah, and remember,
Well,
Leo
Leo
the
is
Lion.
based off of Kimba's son.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, when you get right down to it, you might as well consider Leo the Lion Tail Part 2, because it's still made by the same people. It still looks the same. It's still animated the same way. The same voice actors. Even the English dub is still done in the same manner. It's basically it's more so that they made a Part 2 rather than a sequel anime specifically. It's more so that for some reason they decided. Okay, let me put it this way: think of Leo the Lion as the Dragon Ball Z of Kimba.
Yeah.
Basically.
Anyway, pep talk with Papa.
So his name is literally Pops Racist.
Yes, like you said, even in the original, their original names technically did add some degree of puns, but for the Japanese standards of first names, they still add a degree. Let me check how Pops actually was called.
Okay. I wonder, maybe this movie could have benefited from being longer, in the sense that we could have fitted more of the over-the-top action while having some of these more quieter moments, essentially, which, again, the quieter moments aren't the devil, but I think I am starting to see how it does make the film feel a bit lopsided. Not even in the sense that one's good, the other's bad, it's just that I really most enjoy this movie when
Yeah.
it is being pure on speed.
Yeah, that's
Racer.
exactly my thing. Because the writing in these moments, while not bad necessarily, is not really strong enough to be
I still have to read the production section, but again, I wouldn't be too surprised. Considering the initial reception from the Warner Bros. Executives, I wouldn't be too surprised if the original concept of the movie was to be completely over the top, and these more quiet moments were basically, mandated by Warner Bros. By saying, no, you have to actually pace yourself. But again, that's what I'll have to read.
I think, yeah, like, Pedro, do you agree that these bits feel a bit tacked on? Whereas, again, the races, and it's good that the races feel like they're the most stuff with the most effort, but is it just me or does it feel like moments like these are tacked on? It's like, and again, not even in a bad way, but it's just like, it feels like we're going for the motions, whereas the action sequences are definitely where the most fun
The
is
action
had.
sequences.
No, I
yes.
agree. No, I agree. See, the thing about these moments. Okay. See, here's the thing. The source material was never any kind of high art in terms of character development and drama and shit. I'm not saying it was soulless. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that. But the anime and the manga knew what they were. Over the top, silly, campy, insane stuff. And it owned it, right? Whereas a scene like this, it feels like they're trying to inject heart, like a more heartfelt
Like-
angle into it. Which I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but the writing is not really strong enough to justify it. Like if you really wanted to take a more heartfelt approach to Speed Racer, you needed some really strong writing to justify it, because like Jova just said, usually we come into Speed Racer for the over-the-top action.
I think a good way to mention this is that this movie tries to pose the question what it means to be a racer, in this case. And there's the experience that Pops had, the experience that the British evil CEO had, Racer X, and subsequently Speed Driver, Speed deciding what is best for his life. When the anime posed that question, it usually amounted to gonna need to go first. Car goes brr.
Exactly.
Usually,
Yeah.
it's not rocket science. Ideally,
I will
anyway,
say this. Sorry.
just to mention very briefly to what Waves was saying, Pop's originally was called Daisuke Mifune. So again, I wonder if the original plan with that was for his constitution, because we mentioned that this happened in The War Ends With You, so maybe it's something akin of effect, strength of a gorilla, maybe. I don't know. Go on, Drova.
At the time when this film was released, I can see why everyone would have believed this was all simply how the Wachowskis wanted to do the story, because, to be honest, Matrix is pretty far up its own ass. And
Also, sorry, go on.
And dear God, from what I've heard of Clouds of Atlas...
Cloud Atlas, again, Cloud Atlas is also up his own ass, but also has the lovely presence of Yellowface characters.
Although, knowing what the Wachowskis wanted to do with this movie and hearing even just the excerpts of the interview that Tio's read from, I do legit wonder and consider the possibility that
Also,
there was executive meddling that
for
forced
the
them to have
scenes,
to include the
for
more
the
sappy
scene-
moments.
two things. One, for the scene that we just had about the family coming out of the kitchen and saying, "Oh, we listened to everything, we're supporting you and everything." It's a good thing everyone showed up afterward, because the way the scene was initially phrased, I don't know about you guys, but it looked to me almost like Sparky was actually entertaining himself with Speed's mother in the kitchen.
Right. We never actually brought up who plays the Toga Khan team. Rain, aka Jung Ji-hoon, plays the racer of the team, the one who betrayed.
Taijo.
Yeah, the one who betrayed our main characters, and his sister is played by Yu Nan.
And second, the thing I mentioned, I remember also this bit. There is apparently, I forgot which specific sequence is, but there is one where Speed had the Mach 5 basically almost completely destroyed, and the entire family went to help him, in order to rebuild it one from scratch. And because it was done by the family, it was actually more genuine, pure, and that's why he won.
Have you seen? He was also in. Have you guys seen that film Ninja Assassin?
No.
No.
Like it came out 1 year after this film. That was produced by the Wachowskis as well as.
Also, with that overalls, John Goodman looked a bit like Mario.
It's me, Mario.
Remember, the original, the real life person that Miyamoto got inspired to create Mario was, a garage owner.
Yeah, an Italian one.
And a plumber.
Well, if I remember correctly, I think the plumber thing was more like accidental rather than an actual,
When it came to the Mario Brothers Professionals, remember, they technically started in Wrecking Crew, which was a completely different thing anyway. The original Mario basically had a garage owner. He might have also do some plumbing, but that's mostly because, again, immigrants needed to, much like in the rest of the wardrobe, immigrants, particularly Italian, needed to adapt and do a bit of everything. So...
I know for certain with Kirby it was a lawyer.
Yeah,
The lawyer that helped them out with the Donkey Kong versus King Kong case.
the one that recently passed away.
And who plays the dad of that group? Let me see.
There you go, the Mach 6.
Huh. Okay.
Let me...
Hiroyuki Sanada.
I think I remember him.
All right.
He's done quite a few things in the West. He's been in Avengers Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Oh, was he the gangster that gets killed by Ronin at the beginning?
I don't know. He was in the Wolverine as well.
Maybe in that one he did play Silver Samurai.
Mr. Holmes, John was Chapter 4 most recently.
Yep.
God, I love this British asshole.
Yeah. Okay, let me put it this way. Yeah, exactly. Let me expand upon what me and Joe were saying in a moment. Okay. See, here's the thing. Imagine for a moment. About the whole, like me and Joe were talking about just now, how we mostly come into Speed Racer for the over-the-top action because that's what's great about it, right? Both manga and anime, right? Hell, like I said, there's a manga exclusive set piece of a fucking gigantic monster chasing the racers. How cool is that, right? So, imagine if they remade Schwarzenegger's Commando, right? And they try to take it more seriously, try to make the relationship between the father and the daughter really heartfelt and really good. We're going to make this movie have some really good dramatic substance. And if they try to do that all as a Commando fan, all I would say was, no, that's not what I want out of Commando. I want over-the-top action.
And yet probably the vast majority of people would eat that up because obvious reasons.
Togo Aigawa, sorry, he's the one who plays the father.
Not that a more serious take on Commando cannot possibly work. If you get
apparently that was the idea of a sequel that was retrofitting to Die Hard. The original plot, as we mentioned, the original plot was supposed to be that the Colonel Campbell stand-in, High Storm. Colonel Campbell was supposed to turn out to be an extra villain, and John Matrix, had to save again his daughter, but in a more serious context.
Also, Nan-Yu would go on to be in Expendables 2, playing Maggie.
Okay. I think a good way to describe this movie is, imagine if all the good moments were saved from a high-top action Arnold Schwarzenegger film like, say, Commando, but you're interspliced between scenes from one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's more quieter films.
Junior.
Jesus Christ!
I hate that Junior is the first one that comes to mind. But
I think that's the best thing to compare it, because again, in terms of pacing difference, It's probably that.
Yeah, no. I mean, Junior's terrible, but Tio's right. Like,
I have
Junior
bad memories
is...
of Kindergarten Cop aside from the memes, as in "Shut up" and "It's not a tumor." But aside from that, I don't have really good memories of that movie. But no, Junior is so far worse.
No, I'd say...
Bye.
Look, I'll say this. Schwarzenegger has been in some crap like Jingle All the Way or Batman and Robin. I will take those 10 times over Junior.
Even End of Days, I'll take even that over Junior.
Oh,
Like,
great.
let me just
now
put
they're
a-
all over the place.
Yeah,
Let me
everyone
put a-
is running around on the screen.
Wait. Okay, Tio, the ultimate test. Would you take
Hold on,
the
give me a second, Pedro. Sorry, give me a second, Jova. And then Lightning and the others crash onto the set and the race cannot start.
Damn it. So yeah, the bad guy has rigged this race to high heaven against Speed,
Indeed.
which means he's got an uphill battle. Okay. Now, I will say this. This feels like a better version of the first race, which was also on a racetrack, but the colors don't feel like they're whirling nearly as much as they were at the first race.
Ow. Are you sure about that, Joe?
It's like I'm watching. It's like I'm watching The Thief and the Cobbler. That one had a similar trick for one of the animations.
My God.
Yeah.
Like, ugh.
That's actually a cool visual effect, making it look like the zebras are moving.
I get that, Jova, but I also agree that it shouldn't come at the cost of, first of all, alienating everyone who's susceptible to a seizure, and, second, genuinely annoying people who cannot really stand it as a whole.
I guess that is one question we do have to ask. Like, yes, some of the stuff could risk giving people a seizure, but if people are doing it for the art, would at least a warning suffice? Since, like, would that mean that...
I suppose to... Whoa, Jesus.
Damn. Okay, Speed just killed that guy.
Throwing
Goddamn.
into the board, like Todd
Again,
in Nimona.
I know, right? More of that, please. And while you're at it, have Speed pick up a gun. Because go on.
They weren't trying to kill him, to be fair.
Here's what you
did
do,
see-
audience. Go to YouTube and search "Go Speed Racer Go," and you should be able to find a video that has Speed with a Tommy gun on the thumbnail. It's literally one minute. It's literally 1 minute of various clips throughout the entire anime of Speed using guns to kill people. It's great.
Even so, the anime is pretty easy to come by these days anyway.
It's on YouTube. You can watch it there.
We did see Speed packing heat earlier in this.
Yeah,
movie,
we did.
To be fair.
We did, but not enough. I want more.
Also, I was trying to think. I do wonder if one thought process maybe with the Wachowskis had is because, again, not necessarily the color, because I actually don't mind, believe it or not, they don't actually mind the oversaturation of color. It's more the intense, cutting and flashing that is potentially a hazard, but I get the idea why.
I
do wonder if the Wachowskis did that because basically a lot of the animes over the decade did had, despite the fact that it was a genuine health hazard. The Simpsons even made a gag about that,
Yeah. Like, yeah, it may not be the best, but my guess is that they were trying to replicate what anime was doing, which, like it or love it, yeah, anime did have that flashing nonsense going on.
You who anybody home, was that Shaft telling me to wake up?
I will say, to follow up on what Jova just said, I will say, however, that anime speed lines, the way they were animated, they were easier on the eyes in comparison to what we see a lot of the stuff in this movie. I feel like the visuals in this movie are quite more intense than a lot of anime speed lines I've seen, especially the ones in Speed Racer. The speed lines in Speed Racer are definitely not this taxing on the eyes.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Like, and part of that is due to the fact that a TV budget is not nearly as deep on the eyes as a cinematic budget will emphasize and enhance.
That is true, but that's where restraint comes in.
Whoa!
Because I feel like
Oh yeah.
that's the sad part about this movie. It shows restraint on the worst possible parts.
And again, it's too focused on these white green screen transitions. I don't
Yeah.
understand why.
Like, that's the weird part. They don't show any restraint when it comes to the visual design of the movie. They go all out. But when it comes to the actual over-the-top action, they show restraint. It's so baffling. It should be the other way around.
I forgot,
Yeah.
Pedro. Have you shown also to Deji the anime?
Oh, don't worry, Teo. That's in the cards.
We need to initiate the
We need to start watching Speed Racer with Deji because, you know.
Oh wait, did you see the movie?
No, we'll have him watch the anime and then show him the movie. So he has
context.
yeah.
I will.
Oh no!
I'm also planning on showing him the entirety of Tintin before he watches the Spielberg movies.
I will say this. I would not be surprised if it is revealed that the reason we had to focus on the more down-to-earth moments for restraint was a film executive.
Again, for the sake of time and not, interrupting too much of the movie, I'll save this for final thoughts. I actually, since we're close to the end of the movie, I might as well also ask this question. I already know what's your answer, Jova, so I'm not going to ask you. But instead, to Dweebs and Pedro, would you prefer this over Dragon Ball Evolution?
No, I'll still take this over Dragon Ball Evolution. Because at least
we need to answer that.
Because at least this movie still looks like a Speed Racer movie, which is more than I can say for Dragon Ball. Where Dragon Ball Evolution is still by far the worst anime adaptation I have ever seen. Because Dragon Ball Evolution goes out. Remember, at least we actually see people getting killed in this movie. At least we see, and Speed and the Mach 5 looks like the Mach 5. They do get some stuff right, at least the more superficial things, right? Dragon Ball Evolution, on the other hand, goes out of its way to piss off Dragon Ball fans in every possible way, and I do mean in every they make the Kamehameha heal, for fuck's sake.
Keep in mind also, Piccolo wasn't even going to be green. The actor had to fight for that.
The Kamehameha is used to heal in Dragon Ball Evolution. Anyone who knows anything about Dragon Ball, even Dwebs, because I've shown him a good amount of it, knows how stupid. It would be like making a Pokemon movie where the Hyper Beam heals your HP. It makes no sense. It's like, you know, hey guys, in how many different ways can we piss off Dragon Ball fans? Like...
Oh no, the Mach 6 is not going. I think I think there was also an episode that actually did something similar where Speed was knocked out and the car was not starting, but he had to believe in himself or some shit. Yeah!
This movie actually does take from the source material to some extent, whereas Dragon Ball Evolution goes out of its way to draw from practically everything except the actual Dragon Ball manga.
I feel like it got one thing right, and even I'm having trouble remembering what it was.
Okay, I will grant you this. There's one moment in Dragon Ball Evolution where it kind of somewhat comes the closest it's ever comes to replicating Dragon Ball. There's a moment where Bulma is trying to search for Roshi's address, right? And Goku is just sitting there eating a piece of meat, right? And that's it. That's the closest the movie comes to replicating Dragon Ball.
So it's kind of like that scene towards the climax of the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie.
Like Bulma's
one action scene that looks close to the source material.
Bulma's trying to find the way to Master Roshi's house, while Goku's just sitting there eating. That's like the closest that movie comes to replicating Dragon Ball.
Okay, he was
Also,
literally flying there. That was cool.
They fly now. Also, yeah, I had to say, Michael Giacchino really is trying to carry the movie on his shoulders.
Oh yeah, he
The
is.
subtitles say "Quiet, Noble Variation on Speed Racer theme playing."
Yes.
Well, that's the idea. Narrative dissonance.
Oh God! Jesus.
What year was the first Cars movie released? 2004?
2006.
So not even too long.
Oh God, this is obnoxious. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, and here's the other thing. Here's the same problem in the beginning, where they're constantly intersplicing between over-the-top moments with the more serious dramatic moments, and it's so jarring when you try to mix these two together. It just...
Would you say he's up and flying as he guns the car around the track?
Huh. Eh.
Ah,
Sorry,
Oh, God.
sorry, James, because it's probably terrible representation for your country, but I love how unapologetically evil the British
Oh, no.
CEO is.
Well, to be fair to in our 12 commentary, Dwebs decided to transform Makoto into a real gigantic British douchebag. So Dwebs is
Whoa.
so Dwebs,
When he had the bit where he was a douchebag.
well, yeah, but he decided to for some reason give him a British accent.
What the fuck?
dead.
Yeah, the movie
Boom.
almost ends with Speed killing 2 people.
Okay,
Holy shit.
can you? Okay.
And he's gone to
He's going for the
hyperdrive.
event horizon. Like, what the fuck?
Whoa! He's in the opening. He just went. It's the opening. It's the opening sequence.
Again, that was cool. Again, if the movie was more consistently that cool and over the top, it would have been so
I love how
much
the
more
car
fun.
almost bleeds. Like, what
It's
the
the
fuck?
yeah, exactly. Like, why couldn't the whole movie be like this? Nobody cares about the plot. Just give us the fucking action.
Again, like if what Tio's been reading for the excerpts are anything to go by, it is sounding like the culprit may have been executive meddling.
That's so weird, though.
Pedro. Oh, Pedro.
Go on.
Yeah, the actor that plays Sparky in this movie. He would go on to be in Jupiter Ascending, playing the profit-seeking guy in that movie.
Ah, okay.
I don't care what anyone says. That's probably going to be a massive step down from this movie.
Oh no, it is. It is. But because Jupiter Ascending is its own brand of bad. But the thing, although I do enjoy it still to some extent, but as a riffing movie. But the thing is, no. Okay, that's the weird part to me, because usually executives, especially executives around this time, usually they give mandates for more action and more stuff to make into toys, right? So you'd think. So executives demanding for Speed Racer to have more plot. I don't know what exactly did they stand to gain from doing that. How do you sell more toys with more quiet scenes?
Well, you'd be surprised. They probably made variants or whatnot. Actually, how was the merchandise for this movie?
I mean, because supposedly, like, we've seen so many movies that have been destroyed by executives to become action-driven, pandering movies that are just there to sell toys, right? So you'd think the executives would allow the Wachowskis to go all the way, all out with the over-the-topness because, action. Therefore, you can sell a lot more toys because you have a lot more action promoting said toys.
Also, there you go, the brother was still alive.
So the idea of the executives asking for more quiet, heartfelt scenes with the humans outside of the vehicles, it feels weird. What exactly is the in for the executives on that?
Alright,
Let's see what really happened. So he staged his own death to keep his family safe, I
Of course.
presume.
Yes.
Trench coat, sunglasses, and everything.
What is this
Facial-
Plastic
editing?
surgery. Turned into the mummy.
They literally took his face.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, he
He
became.
became Ben Affleck.
I was actually gonna say Tom Cruise, but that works too. I'm guessing the sequel was probably going to have him reveal to his brother for reals.
Possibly. Like he said, apparently the script has been written in 2018, but too much time has passed, obviously.
There we are.
I'd like to thank my mom, my dad, my chimp.
One of these days.
Sir?
One of these days, I really need. Well, not today, because it's too late for that. One of these days, I really want us to comment on the Dexter's Lab episode as a neat little 5-minute epilogue to this commentary, just because that episode is so awesome.
Also, Excuse me, Mr. Racer, did you say you're chimp?
Yes, he's right here in the tux.
I would ask if I'm tripping balls, but I already am.
That's a nice joke if I've ever heard one.
Yes.
As for, well, okay, you know what? Why am I even trying to understand the sensitivities of a film executive? We have learned long and since
Yeah.
that they are so out of
Hey,
touch.
yeah.
You didn't win the race.
Oh, they are, Jova. They are. That's the thing. The way the executives were out of touch regarding this movie is usually the exact opposite way they usually are. That's what weirds me out. Because
Oh, yes, and Tahoe is actually going to testify.
Let me put it this way. If I was part of the executive board and I was also a money-grubbing douchebag like they were, my reaction to these minutes would have been, guys, what are you talking about? If we let them go all out, we can sell even more toys based on this shit. What exactly are you...
There you go. This is the classic opening of Speed Racer.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Basically, that's how the remix starts. Okay, there are two versions of the remix. One starts with the original Japanese version. The other version starts with the original English version, both of which channel into the remix. And yeah, it's an awesome remix.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, for the sake of time, again, no post-credit scene. For the sake of time, I'll read the producer, the production, rest of the production after Libs' final thoughts. So go on, Libs.
Alright, well, the positives. I thought the acting for most of the people was solid. I think it's probably the best acting I've seen out of any movie directed by the Wachowskis.
Well, I think, shoot, is this the only Wachowskis movie that doesn't resort to having everyone take on a monotone or overly serious look and talking about the great grandeur?
To an extent, to the villain of Jupiter Ascending, I guess, but...
Which one?
That was Eddie Redmayne hamming it up.
Eddie Redmayne, yeah. But no, Joe has a point. Aside from Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending, in this, no, like, usually the Wachowski movies are, like, super, super duper serious. Not that they don't have humor, they do have it, but it's usually not particularly great humor, so...
Most of the acting was solid. I did like the Michael Giacchino music.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I mean, there were a couple of bits in the action scenes that were reminiscent of the show. The negatives, again, the visuals, twofold. One, in spite of coming out years after them and having more of a budget, they look worse than the Spy Kids movies. And not to mention, again, I get it. You wanted to try and avoid the whole washed-out colour scheme that was popular at the time. But I don't think going the opposite direction, that possibly could have killed people watching it, was the best answer.
Yeah.
It really hurts to look at, which is really bad for a movie. The green screen work is terrible. It's worse than when the Star Wars prequels, a trilogy of films that get ridiculed for the overuse of CGI, when they look better than this, something's gone wrong. And in terms of, I praised the acting before, but Emil Hirsch, I think he's like the actor who still fell into the Wachowski trap of how they direct actors. Like, yeah, I mean, in terms of like pitch, the one time he wasn't monotone was when he did that yell after he found out that he was betrayed. Even during parts of the races, he still sounds like it's. He probably should have been told to, lighten up a little bit in terms of his tone of voice. Again, that's the thing. It's a film called Speed Racer. It's based off a series that wasn't exactly that heavy on plot. I mean, there were some plots with a bit of meat on their bones, but not that much. And trying to make it. That's the problem with the Wachowskis. Sometimes they're a bit over ambitious. Like they try and overly complicate things that don't really need to be overly complicated. It's not the worst example of it, but it's the weirdest. But it's the weirdest one.
It would be interesting since it's sounding like based off of that interview Tia read, it may be a case where ironically the stuff that brings down this movie may not have been the Wachowskis' call, but the executive meddling.
That might have been true, but I don't think the executives called for the Wachowskis to try and blind the audience. Yeah, and that's something that, in my opinion, the worst part of the movie is the visuals. You know, in terms of how really poor the compositing is, and just how how low quality they are most of the time, and also how I can barely stand to look at it. It's a good job. I've got my lamp on. If I watched this all in complete darkness, I would probably have had to burp quite a few times. Well, and one other positive thing I can say is that I've seen at least a couple of the actors in other projects. It's not anyone's worst movie. I mean, Christina Ricci was in that. What was that Happy Madison film starring one of Adam Sandler's mates? Bucky Larson, that's it.
Oh God, Bucky Larson, the movie that came out literally just a year after Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
Arguably some of Happy
Sarandon.
Madison's worst years.
Susan Sarandon was in That's My Boy.
John Goodman was in worse movies.
I
remember that.
think there's a comment from the main character of Team America that works pretty well. Your skill is fading with age, Miss Sarandon.
Damn.
And honestly, I think that's really about it. It's a movie that I honestly do really want to like this movie, but with all the problems it has, I just can't. It hurts my eyes, and aside from those couple of decent action moments, it's just moments. The action scenes as a whole are just really just kind of bleh,
So-
mainly due to the visuals. And so, in terms of its reappraisal over the years, I'm not seeing.
So I'm guessing you agree with me that people are better off just going to YouTube and watching the anime.
Probably. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, what would you rather have? Yeah, it's a choice. What would you rather have? Speed Racer played by an actor who, honestly, who sounds bored half the time, or an absolute maniac?
Yes.
You'll have to be more specific.
He's like me when I play Hitman half the time. He just kills everybody. But yeah, that's it for me.
Sure.
Let me use this to continue the production while we're at it. Alright, in 2012 interview, Lana said, the whole impetus for Speed Racer came out of the fact that we are visually thinking people. We go to art galleries and art museums all the time. We go into the Art Institute of Chicago, and every room there are paintings that are completely and utterly different from the other rooms. But in cinema, everything looks the same. And it's a real aggressive straitjacket aesthetically. We started talking about cubism, for instance. We started talking about, could you make a cubist film? And we realized that if you try to make a cubist film for adults, it will end up like Picasso, running from the angry mob when he first showed Guernica. They wanted to kill him, literally. It's because adults, they reject change, and an aesthetic change is too aggressive a death for them. Every generation experiences aesthetic death. And when you really assault an aesthetic, people freak out. But we said that kids are okay with an aesthetics change. While planning out the film's pace and structure, the siblings embraced techniques of non-linear narrative, such as stream of consciousness storytelling, for modern things like the James Joyce's Ulysses and Ricky Bobby's Purple America, seeking to play with the conventions of cinematic languages both authors had done with prose. They de-emphasized traditional cutting for more fluid transitions with the intention that things will feel like this is experimental flowing thing that was transcending normal simple linear narrative. Sure. The film's bright, colorful, smooth look is indebted to pop art, including paintings of Roy Lichtenstein and art photography by Andy Warhol, David LaChapelle, and Jill Greenberg. To achieve the desired visual aesthetic, Gaeta and the effects supervisor Dan Glass developed a method of layering photographic and computer-generated imagery that they described as optimistic photo anime. taking inspiration from animated films like The Castle of Cagliostro, Tron, Akira, and Tarzan.
It's interesting too because
What?
John Gaeta was also the visual effects guy for the Matrix movies. So, and for as much as they rip off Ghost in the Shell, the visuals are still technically a good recreation on their own merit. So you have to wonder what the hell happened.
All right, casting and filming and scoring doesn't really say that much that we don't already know. There was apparently an incident with PETA, believe it or not. PETA apparently made allegation of animal cruelty against the film, reporting that one or two chimpanzees used in production was allegedly beaten after biting a child actor, probably Spritle. The incident was confirmed by the American Humane Association, who reportedly had the stand-in for Spritle character portrayed by Lit had been beaten without provocation. The HA representative also reported that toward the end of the filming, during a training session in the presence of the American Humane representative, the trainer, in an uncontrolled impulse, hit the chimpanzee. The HA film unit referred to his abuse as completely excusable and unacceptable behavior in the use of any animal. The HA placed Speed Racer on the unacceptable list, chiefly because of his incident, a separate case where 5 piranhas died of unexplained causes, with HA noting the aforementioned training incident tarnished the excellent work of the rest of production and has no method of separating the action. I need to check again the credits because I seem to have noticed the lack of no animals were harmed during the production of this movie. But it doesn't really mention here about executive handling. I can check about the critical response in the meantime instead, the last thing before we pass on to the final thoughts. The movie has a approval percent of 42% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 218 reviews. An average rating of 5.20 out of 10. Let me check in the meantime, the fan score instead is 60%, which I guess is more, a better estimation. Let me see if there's anything particular mentioning here. Glenn Kenny of Premiere criticized the film's time-shifting narrative, multiple storylines, saying it yields heretofore undreamed levels of narrative incoherence. Kenny praised the film's look, saying that the cheese whizness that other had criticized was precisely the point. He remarked that the movie inspires even more thinking about The Matrix because of its blatantly anti-capitalism storylines. True. Similarly, the New Yorker's and Anthony Lane said the film could still end up bleach of fun due to the film mooted in The Matrix, but all of us are being controlled. In Speed Racer, Lane argues this comes in the form of villain Royalton, who vows to crash Speed with his unassailable might of money. He concluded some people may call it entertaining, but he felt it like pop fascism. Journalist lingo drove in all that. No mentioning of the Japanese reception. I kind of wish I would be able to see that. But to conclude quickly, the supposed retrospective reappraisal. Christina Chidid said that I think he was aware of disconnect was going on at the time, and I was sort of watching, and not that I expected that, but I knew that there would be problems because I knew that people were expecting something very different than what was actually going to be delivered. The film has appeared sporadically on lists of underrated films. Speed Racer was elected in the third most underrated film of 2000 by Den of Geeks and P. Orton, which called it a game-changing film, blah, blah. Annalie Newitz of IONI analyzed the 10 reasons why they believe the film to be an unsung masterpiece, including its visual, humor, and political themes. Tor.com Dexter Palmer considered the possibility that the film is a quote-unquote misunderstood art film, highlighting its color scheme that is a pleasure and the fact that it does not try to seem real. Palmer lauded it because it does not think films must imitate reality, and ultimately said it's an extreme reminder of what films, and especially fantasy and science fiction films, can place on screen, and that it's a refreshing change of pace in film industry. I guess I can just skip the rest. So basically, these are the things that are presented, at least for the most part, at least on Wikipedia. I'm sure that online there are other people who can talk more about this. But for the time being, what the rest of us think, Pedro?
Okay. As someone who is a big fan of, because I grew up watching the Speed Racer anime multiple times, right, as a kid, and I loved it, right? I loved it then, and I still love it today because At the time, I loved it because of the bright colors and the fun, cool racing and action going on, right? Now, as an adult, I can appreciate it for the absolutely insane thing that it is today because of how unapologetically nuts it is, you know? Because it's such a fun show. Like, it's nothing. It knows. It's a show that knows exactly, and the manga also. Like, the source material knows exactly what it is. It's balls to the wall, insane, over the top fun. That's what it is. It doesn't try to be anything more than that, and it owns it. This movie, on the other hand, feels like a movie that's constantly at a tug of war with itself. Regardless of what actually happened behind the scenes, yes, we can talk about what ifs, and we can talk about, what happened. Let's just talk about the movie. I'm judging the movie that we have rather than the movie that it could have been. So, yeah. First off, the movie. I don't necessarily have a problem with them, at the very least, trying to inject more of a heartfelt angle into Speed Racer. It can potentially work, but you need good writing to justify that, because if you don't pull it off well, all you're going to do is make people wish they were just watching Speed Racer instead. So if you're going to take this gamble, you need to make sure it pays off, because if you don't have some really good Pixar-esque writing to justify distracting us from the over-the-top action we came here for, all you're going to do is make people wish that you hadn't tried it. Because this writing here, while not necessarily bad, it's not particularly interesting either. It's just the characters it's at best very by the numbers and not particularly compelling. And as a result, because you just had so much fun watching the race in the last scene, and then we cut to a dinner scene between Speed and Trixie, and you're just like, can we get back to the race, please? like I so don't care about this. Yeah, it really is like that.
Would you say it's ironic that in that regard, then, that this movie nowadays has grown into quite the cult classic, apparently?
I honestly do not understand where people are coming from, to be honest with you. Because even on its own merits, I still don't think the movie is particularly great. I mean, the action can be really fun and over the top, and it's fun. But every time we're not seeing those scenes, the movie is confused about what it wants to be. It tries to have it starts out with a flashback of the backstory of how Speed lost his brother. And instead of telling said backstory that's meant to be supposedly tragic in a straightforward manner, it instead interplaces it with multiple weird-ass transitions and over-the-top racing bits that completely distract from the drama of the flashback scenes. As a result, it's impossible to get invested because of it's like if I'm trying to watch a movie and there's constantly someone poking my head with their finger. Hey, and I'm like, stop it! Like, I'm trying to watch the fucking movie,
so
please.
Would you say that the more quieter moments are the people poking you, and the action sequences are you getting to actually enjoy the film?
Well, I was describing the incredibly sporadic nature of the editing during that opening scene. But sure, if you want me to answer, yes, that would be the case. Yes, because the drama. This is actually one of those rare cases where the quote-unquote human drama is actually distracting and not at all something that feels necessary. I came into Speed Racer to watch a fun race. Let me put it this way, Jova, since you were talking about the critics earlier. Cloud Atlas is the Wachowskis having their Lily in the Water moment, where I'm not kidding you, they literally have a critic character that gets killed, and there's even a line that says, what is a critic but someone who reads thoughtlessly, in a hurry, and without something along those lines. Basically, they're calling critics stupid. Basically, it's basically the Wachowskis calling critics stupid for not liking their films. Basically, it's literally their Lily in the water moment.
Because it worked so well even with Ron Emmerich.
Yeah.
Well, that's the ironic thing. He didn't go as far as you think he would, but okay.
He just ridiculized Siskel and Ebert on a visual level.
Pedro, where would you say Speed Racer stands in regards to the pantheon of Wachowskis films?
It's probably one of their better films, if anything, because it's at the very least more usually at the very least the characters feel like they have energy to them, which is more than I can say for a lot of their other movies. But it's still not very good because the movie is this movie doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to be. Does it want to be an over-the-top action romp? Does it want to be a more heartfelt family film? Like it's trying to be both, and as a result, it doesn't really reach the heights of either of the two genres. You know, you have this awkward middle ground that's trying to do both and doesn't do. Occasionally you'll get moments that are really super over the top that really makes you think, yeah, why couldn't the whole movie be like this? You have some really cool epic scenes, but they go on and then they end, and then we cut back to another drama scene that just feels like, can we get back to the action, please? I so don't care about this. Yeah, it's just it doesn't work in either camp. The music by Michael Giacchino is great because, well, it's Michael Giacchino. That's just
Has he ever missed?
That's the thing. I actually find his Zootopia score to be rather forgettable, which is I consider that's like the one weak link that movie has. The score. I actually found his score to Zootopia particularly forgettable. I don't like most of the time. I don't even notice it.
Guess that's one time.
There's probably like one or two, considering how long he's been doing this, but I can't think of any other one off the top of my head. The visuals, okay, they're colorful and they can indeed oftentimes do capture the look of the show, and there's even some neat little callbacks and all that stuff. But man, couldn't you fucking like the one thing where the one aspect of the movie where you should apply some restraint and you decide to just drop your pants. There are scenes in this movie. This movie is definitely not something you should watch if you are susceptible to epilepsy, because there's quite a lot of moments in this movie where even I had to look away from the screen. It's obnoxious at times. So yeah, that's a problem. Also, the fucking transitions and the editing. What is up with this? Like, seriously, I'm trying to watch the movie and the movie keeps constantly interrupting itself with transitions upon transitions. And it's just...
Again, it's like you said, it's like a Frank Miller comic. You read something where there's a floating head that is going from left to right. It's like, bye.
Seriously, what the hell? That being said, the acting is solid, especially from evil British guy who's absolutely delighted and is chewing the scenery in every scene that he's in. In fact, I kind of wish all of the actors were given the same direction he was given. Have everybody act like this, over the top. Like, this is not Shakespeare, it's fucking Speed Racer. Just embrace the lunacy and have fun. Yeah, that's basically it. It's a very confused movie, and I don't really like it because it doesn't capture the spirit of the source material, and even on its own merits. Again, outside from a couple instances like we discussed. But even on its own merits, it's just a confusing mess that doesn't really seem to know what it wants to be. Pick a side. You're either a heartfelt family film or you're completely insane, cartoony, over the top, romp. You can't do both. You can potentially do both, but with your writing, you can't. No, sorry. This one ain't it. It's not very good. No, there's the occasional flashes of what the movie could have been when it does indeed go all out, but those moments are way too few and way too far in between. We have to sit through so much human stuff and through quite a lot of. There's also the occasional good moment here and there, even with the humans, like Pops finally becoming. See, if Pops acted throughout the entire movie the way he does when he beats the crap out of that ninja. See, now that's Pops fun because we see Pops in the anime act over the top like he does in that scene all the time. That's just it. The key to a good speed racer adaptation is to just go over the top. Go over the top. Don't try to be pretentious and have a story and be meaningful. No, that's not what people come into Speed Racer for. Just embrace the lunacy. That's the only way you can make that work. Sorry. I'm not saying you can't potentially have a more heartfelt take on Speed Racer. You can potentially have it, but you need strong writing to pull that off. Because if you don't, all you're going to achieve is make people miss the original. So sorry. I don't really get the whole resurgence cult classic thing. It kind of reminds me of the now cult classic status of the Super Mario Brothers 93 movie, which baffles the hell out of me because that movie's garbage. Yeah, I'm basically done. This ain't it. Like, if you want, like, this ain't it. It's not really the Speed Racer adaptation that we deserved. Like, it should have been better. Could have been better. There are times where it shows how it could have been better, even. But no. No, not really.
Also, I'm tempted to, not even sure that I wanted to say this, but just for having a laugh to your reaction, Pedro, because I know exactly what kind of ad. You want to know, this is apparently someone's favorite movie, apparently. Want to know whom?
Well, to be fair, there's a lot of people nowadays that apparently like the movie, so that's not that surprising. But who?
So who?
Eagle Raptor.
Well...
I mean,
like I said, I know that for you Sonic fans is the that kind of statement is hilarious to me.
Well, I mean, he's not really that big to us Sonic fans these days, especially since Sega thankfully let him go. So I'm like, I guess
it's more so Tail. Like the thing that's leads on to some is because of how he was misrepresenting the series in general, and how Sega actually went out of it to rob their salt in our wounds by getting him involved in promotion for the franchise. Imagine if they got a Nier hater to help promote the Nier series.
I think there's another analogy that I can think of, but it will be too provocative, and we're going off topic.
Sure.
All right.
The point is, it's not great. Sorry. Go on, Joe.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start this off by looking at it from the reevaluation status. I do get why this movie is more liked nowadays, since back when this movie came out, I can get how it may have seemed gaudy or whatnot, and how a lot of people were expecting more, so the anime may not have known as much about its roots from the manga. Okay, looking at it now, especially in the lens that we're seeing a lot of other live-action takes on anime, be it Western or Japanese, between One Piece, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and some other stuff that's been a lot better received by being more in line with its anime counterpart, I can see why this movie is better received nowadays, since it does feel in lieu of that sense where it can be over the top, maybe a bit more down to earth, but still manages to replicate the series arguably at its best, without feeling like it's a coward's take. Because yes, while I don't care for the down-to-earth moments as much, this movie doesn't feel like it's shying away from being a Speed Racer film, which is the biggest problem I tend to have with any live-action adaptation, where it feels like it's embarrassed to be based off of this one. No. The Speed Racer movie does not feel embarrassed for that. And even stuff like the visuals, I do see a point and purpose to them. Are they perfect? No, no. But when they work, they really work. So, yeah, as a whole, I can see why this movie has been reevaluated as apparently one of the best live-action adaptations of a Western movie. But do I myself agree with that? That is a tricky question. That's a tricky answer. Which, luckily, I do have. Looking back at this movie, I too have grown to appreciate it. That being said, I'm not sure I'd go so far as to say it's the best live action take of an anime. Although, God forbid, is it the best Western take of a live action anime?
I'll take this over the Ghost in the Shell movie. Fuck that.
Oh, yes, God, 1,000 times
I have
yes.
not. I have yet not seen that movie because I have, as someone
Let
who
me put
loves,
it this-
I love Ghost in the Shell, and I absolutely have
Okay.
no interest in seeing that movie.
Well, in that case, I can just tell you that one of the major twists of that movie, Peter, right here, right now. You know how people complain about, the ethnical swapping of the main character?
Yeah.
That's apparently a plot point in the movie.
Oh,
As
great.
in, originally the character was supposed to be Asian, but through process and everything, she got ethnicity changed like that character in the James Bond movie. That was the end of the Pierce Brosnan era.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
Yeah, now what that says about the status of the industry, I don't know, but I will say this is, I would say, a legit good Western adaptation, live action wise, of an anime. But it is not perfect. I view it in a similar way that I view Sonic Forces or how I view The Wiz. I like it. But there are moments I really do not like, and overall I acknowledge that it could have been and deserved to be better than what it is. So, yeah, let me start off with this. Music, great. The casting, excellent. The acting, for the most part, good. I'm fine with not everyone being too over the top. I feel like they get in just the right amount of balance. As cool as over the top stuff would be, if we got nothing but that, it might turn into just adrenaline junk food. So I'm overall fine with what we got in the acting department. I will agree that Emil Hirsch, while a good speed, if I did have to pick one main actor who doesn't stand out particularly to me, it is him. That might partially be the fact that I'm just not as familiar with Hirsch. Again, he is fine as speed, but he feels the most replaceable, if you get what I mean. John Goodman is Pop. Now, he feels nice, definitive, great casting choice. And while I could maybe see somebody else in the role, John Goodman feels like he fits the role in the sense that he was made for it. Emil, I just don't get that feeling. Again, not that he's bad. Oh God, imagine if we had gotten Johnny Depp in the role.
Keep in mind that he was a young Johnny Depp.
Young Johnny Depp.
Think of him like when he sort of similar to the role that he had in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, just a slightly older.
That could have been cool.
It also would
still.
have been a movie done at the end of the 90s, so if they did use CGI, it would have been terrible, especially if it was Warner Bros. They probably would have used the New Line Cinema brand that they were partially connected to. So, no, I dread to think what this movie would have looked back then.
Well, given if it was in the 90s, there was a chance they may have gone for practical effects. Which, in that case, holy cow, can you imagine Speed Racer done with practical effects?
Might have been a nightmare, admittedly. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the movie was delayed constantly.
That could be. Although if Christopher Nolan made it, in order to properly simulate
We're gonna
the
kill
realism
several
of
racers.
Speed Racer, Christopher Nolan has staged a real-life death race in his backyard. I mean, why not? He set off an actual bomb at this point.
He would create wooden dummies to put in the cars, and try to.
And then he would actually load the cars with the swords, slick and everything. But yeah, no, I feel like this movie's heart is in the right place. I just don't feel like it always consistently hits the mark. Because, yeah, those down-to-earth moments, again, they're not even bad, but they feel tacked on. And I don't think that it's inherently a bad thing, but I do wish we got more scenes of Speed in the actual Mach 5, more scenes of Speed in his proper outfit, which they are cool and are some of the best moments in the movie. I don't hate the Mach 6 as much as I did back then. Since I'll admit the first time I saw this movie, I didn't even know if the Mach 5 was going to show up. Knowing now that it does, yeah, I'm cool with the Mach 6 being like Speed's personal car, whereas the Mach 5 is the heirloom, which does lead to both having their moments. Good stuff. And yeah, the fight scenes are also pretty cool and over the top as well. As for the visuals, I do like how they make the film pop in the right places. I do also admit, I feel like there's a time when they overdo it with the color in other places to the point where, yeah, this could potentially be harmful to some people. I'll admit, though, I feel like it's one of those cases where it's a tough spot between should we ban this or should we allow films like this to exist, because arguably, even films that handle the stuff good can risk being, seizure-inducing.
If you remember what I said, quoting in the interview, Jova, apparently the Wachowskis made a point that the visuals are not supposed to be, intentionally like this, but they were done with the purpose of challenging the art. The idea that, they wanted to get out of the schemes. So the idea was not so much trying to cater to a specific fan base, but potentially try to build a new one entirely.
Interesting. So, like, a fan base specifically geared to this form of visual.
This is normally called postmodernism, but it's a huge topic that none of us are really qualified to discuss. So
I will say, it sounds ambitious, but it also sounds like it runs the risk of crashing, burning, and coming off as pretentious.
Like most of the racers in this franchise.
Which... yeah, as much as I don't want to be too hard on the Wachowskis, they have always had, I feel, a bit of a...
ego.
Ego. Ego's probably the best way to put it.
It's one of the true death of the arts in general, regardless of media.
Keep going, Jova. I'll have something to add to that. Go on.
Which, again, ego can be good for Drive, but the Wachowskis, I feel, at times really let it get to their heads, which... yeah, again, I haven't seen Cloud Atlas, but from what I've heard of that being their equivalent to Lady in the Water, and given how Jupiter Ascending turned out, oh boy.
Here it is, Jova. Check that. So, when it came to the reception to Cloud Atlas, Lily Wachowski said this specifically. As soon as critics encounter a piece of art that they don't fully understand the first time going through it, they think it's the fault of the movie or the work of art. They think it's a mess. This doesn't make any sense. And they reject it, just out of an almost knee-jerk response to some ambiguity or some gulf between what they expect they should be able to understand and what they don't and what they understand. Okay, you haven't seen Cloudless, Jova, but as I have, so allow me to respond to this. Wachowskis, you're the ones creating the gulf between what we understand and what we expect to understand. But
the
but I'm not done, Java. In the same interview, Lana says that people will try to will Cloud Atlas to be rejected. They will call it messy or complicated or undecided, whether it's trying to say something new, agey, profound or not. And we're wrestling with the same things that Dickens and Hugo and David Mitchell and Herman Melville were wrestling with. This is the Wachowskis having their Shyamalan moment where Shyamalan was trying to defend Last Airbender by saying, well, Hitchcock, Stanley Kubrick, those are my teachers. And I'm just like, yeah. We're wrestling with those same ideas, and we're trying to do it in a more exciting context than conventionally you are allowed to. We don't want to say we are making this to mean this. What we find is that the most interesting art is open to a spectrum of interpretation. So you see, Jova, if you don't get our genius movie, it's your fault. Okay?
The sad thing is, what the Wachowskis say does apply to some critics who themselves are up their own asses. The problem is the Wachowskis are describing basically Any critic who doesn't see the genius of my work is an idiot.
There's an entire discussion that can be made about how media in the present can potentially not be fully understood, but there's also the fact that people lampshading this, are basically the equivalent of trying to create a meme. You just cannot do it. It tends to just happen naturally as a result. So it's already a mess on its own, but it's a huge, bigger topic that doesn't have too much of a place here.
But yeah, to cap off my thoughts here, Speed Racer is great when it is focusing on what makes Speed Racer Speed Racer. Over-the-top races, cars, and action. I'll give them credit. They do improve on some things. Yes! Trixie. They improved Trixie, which, given that she's apparently someone as important as the love interest and the one who is watching over Speed's races, going off of what I've seen from the anime.
To be entirely fair, she does occasionally pilot the helicopter to help out here and there, but it's not much.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. It's I'll give this movie that. They did legit improve her and give her more agency and stuff to do. As for Racer... I almost said Racer D. I was thinking Dexter there. As for Racer X, I get the whole feeling they were sequel vibing with him. Like, they were saving it for a sequel where he reveals properly to Speed that, yes, he is his brother. But, to give us some credit, it doesn't seem like it was caught up in sequel hooking overall. It wasn't like a blatant, come see us and that'll guarantee us the sequel vibe. So, props to them. They did set this movie up to be proper as its own thing and a good enough closing point. But yeah, to summarize, Speed Racer is best when it's just being Speed Racer. When it's trying to go super deep about what it means to be a racer, that's where it falls flat. So, PSA, be a Speed Racer.
Alright, as for me, a couple of things to mention. One, I skimmed through the credits, and while the American Humane Monitor the Animal Action certificate is present in the credits, there is not the label of no animals were injured during the production of this movie. So yeah, the accidents apparently were genuine with the chimpanzee. Oops. Second, I didn't mention much about the anime in relation to my countries. It was not as fake when it comes to animes around done at that time because, yes, the anime actually was localized in my country in the 60s themselves. So much like America, got it relatively early. Our dub was still a bit goofy, but it was a bit better than the one. And the title is also slightly different. Get this. Unfortunately, because again the 60s, so my country decided to do a lot of weird shit on their own. The anime here is called Supercar Mach 5, which sure it is a thing, but it's not the name of a main character, but of his vehicle.
Well, to be fair, the original Japanese name is Mach Go Go Go, so your title is not too far off, honestly.
I argue. Remember, the main protagonist is Go Mifune in Japanese. So I argue instead the English title is more close because it's still the name of the character to an extent. When it's said in here, but it's not too surprising because the series Knight Rider with in my country it's called Supercar. So there's an emphasis.
Don't get me wrong.
There's an emphasis of trying to put, priority over the vehicle more than the pilot.
Which is ironic because, Kit, while he was neat and all, was not the main star. It was Knight Rider.
But just to mention, like I said, the anime, while not as as much beloved in my country as stuff like Mazinger Z, for example, is still present. People knew about it. But like I said, the marketing of this movie was almost non-existent, and I don't understand why. Because I do remember, again, 2008, I do remember the marketing of a lot of movies that came out around the time, but there was almost nothing. In fact, I think Speed Racer was one of the movies parodied in Disaster Movie because it was around that time too. In fact, in the meantime, Jova, can you do me a favor? since you're the American.
Yeah.
I know that Hollywood does like a car parade every year or some shit like that. Was the Mach 5 ever present in one of those? Can you check that in the meantime?
If it was, it depends on which. Oh, yes, it was actually in the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade.
Cool. But anyway, as for this movie, like I said, I completely forgot my experience with the first commentary. So, again, when I say to scrap that, it's not because I disagree with what I might have said. In that, it's just I genuinely do not remember. I'm sorry, audience. It's not a thing that happens all the time, but it's so bizarre, nonetheless. But anyway, as for this movie, since now I also have the context of the anime, and judging from what Pedro showed to us, at least to an extent also the manga, maybe not completely, but at least to an extent. I'm gonna say this, because I think roughly I'm in the middle between Jova and Pedro's thoughts, but I'm gonna say this. Watching this gave me at least the vibes where the Wachowskis genuinely cared about the source material. Because one of the big problems that I do have with countless, and I mean countless, anime and manga that get adapted by Hollywood is that they don't feel as if they were much of a fan, or they just did not care. Like Spike Lee's Old Boy, just for an example, which, to be fair, was a project he was literally slammed into, you know. Or, like he said, the Ghost in the Shell movie. Then we have more weird cases, where apparently the makers behind are fan of the source material, but apparently something gets screwed up, like with Alita. I need to still see the movie for myself to see what the fuss is about. But again, I cannot. Again, I know for a fact that James Cameron is also an anime fan and a fan of the source material. But then we encounter something similar to this with a Tintin movie, which also has something similar also to this, where, the animation is just genuinely not really good to look at, but all the people seem to genuinely instead loved it, despite that, which I don't understand why either.
It's important to remember that just because you're a fan of something, that doesn't necessarily mean you understand it or even the best person to adapt it.
It's also... Sorry, go on.
There is something I wanted to ask you. Okay, I definitely agree that the Wachowskis put their all into this. Now, let's speak hypothetically. Assuming it was executive meddling that caused them to have to tone it down from all that it could have been, and as a result, the movie wasn't as beloved, do you think that may have made the Wachowskis bitter in a sense, which would explain how some of their later films turned out?
Not sure, because the Wachowskis did had a bizarre career and a bit of a rough personal life, and not definitely the most qualified person to analyze that, if I had to be honest. Again, I can speak mostly for this movie, and like my point was getting, again, when we have cases like, for example, the Netflix Death Note movie, where you can tell that the person responsible for it might have actually read, the source material or seen the anime, and understood the name of the characters and their role. But it's such a bizarre interpretation of the plot that it might as well not have been present, But instead, with this movie, I kind of get the feeling that Wachowskis get the source material to an extent, at the very least, because there are many moments that not only are actually adapted from the source material, as in story elements that are just amalgamated into a cohesive storytelling, because the anime was more of an anthology. There was a sort of a continuous arc with the identity of Racer X, but they were just anthologies about, the race of today, or maybe there's this plot conspiracy in a generic exotic country, and Speed has to kill everyone with a Tommy gun, But aside from that, it did not have a complete linear structure. So having the movie having to combine everything into one package, I get the idea why they would take singular elements and amalgamate them. But I do seem to remember elements from the anime getting very close to being adapted. So that requires dedication and being faithful. The problem, I think, maybe it clashes onto the decision of Wachowski to try to make this an avant-garde piece of art, which that in itself is technically a noble goal. It's just that you're trying to basically having the cake and eat it too with this case. So obviously you're not going to really please that many people as a result. I get the idea what they're trying to do, the idea that younger audience will not be at the preconceptions that adults might have, so they will be more likely to be influenced by such a product and be positively received. And it seems that something like this happening because usually critical evaluation are done in lieu of nostalgia waves that are happening. So all the people who watch these as children, now they are enough, grown up to start voicing properly their opinions on the matter, which is probably what is happening. There's an entire discussion that has to be made about, like I said, the passage of time, if a movie is reviewed or appreciated in the present, but then perceived differently in the future, have to be the same thing when it's real and when it's actually manufactured for the sake of talking about it, and how this all ties together into the whole cinema panorama. But it's a huge mess, and I don't really have the answer for it, so I'm just going to mention that this is probably another part of it, and only time will tell in where this actually fits in. I can tell you what do I think. The score is easily the best part of this. Michael Giacchino really is trying, and you can tell that he is also a fan of a product. I can't believe that. I genuinely can. It's funny. Recently, I remember, Pedro, when you mentioned that Junkie XL or Tom Alkenborg, as his real name, didn't felt like was caring that much about the score of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Basically, the reason is that apparently Tom apparently, from what I check, is a bit of has a bit of an ego on himself, and is a bit pretentious in himself, where he believes that using source material type of score, for being referenced, is something to be ashamed of, which is why stuff that is scored off tends to try to actively avoid resource material, including the Monsterverse movie that he has scored so far, which are Godzilla vs. Kong, and I think also the recent Godzilla X Kong, and also the Sonic movies. The reason that apparently there is not much games music in those is apparently his fault. So, yeah. Not exactly a nice guy to hang around with when it comes to that.
I've heard that his arm may be getting twisted with the Sonic Free movie. Thank God.
That's what we'll have to see.
Hell, I recently saw Rebel Moon, the new Zack Snyder movie, which also has Tom Walkenborg on the score. And even when he's doing an original movie that has no source material of any kind, so you can just do whatever you want, even that score is not particularly something that I even remember anything from.
My point in this is that instead, look at Michael Giacchino genuinely feels like a genuine fan that is trying to give an original experience, while at the same time, remixing also the themes of the anime. So that's a very nice sentiment, and it's part of the package, like you said. This idea that with the movie, despite the movie being a mess because of its visuals and special effects, that are sure to, definitely be for a very restrictive audience because of, how excluding they are. I can feel the fact that the people who made this are still fan of the product, and that the product in itself is genuine. I mean, genuinely a love letter to the source material. Whatever that is enough for you to think, it's a noble enough, effort for the movie, or it's still clearly not enough because at the end of the day, you're not able to see most of the movie because of the color and flashing. That's basically up to you. But compared to countless anime adaptations that Hollywood just does for the sake of, look how good we are, in taking these foreign properties and giving our own spin, this feels as a genuine grade of honesty onto it. And that is something I had to commend to an extent. I wasn't bothered too much by the color. The rapid movement and the flashing were a thing. Thankfully, compared to Dibs, I was not, in this case, believe it or not, I was not distracted too much, despite me being able to see where the problem was, But the color is actually, the oversaturation of color, this is something that I actually genuinely like about the movie. Especially considering this was done in the era when instead everything was going through the desaturation effect instead. So this was kind of an appreciated change of pace. This generally looks like an acid trip on purpose, and I have to admit, I kind of liked it. I probably needed something extra to stimulate myself with this, I suppose. And I guess it's the perfect stoner movie when you get down to it. Particularly towards the end, where Speed decides to just, as TV Tropes mentioned, give the middle finger to physics and just literally fly over towards the beginning of a race, kill 2 people, and then traverse a tunnel towards the event horizon. Like, what the fuck was that?
You see, for a moment, he traveled into the original anime universe when he goes right into the anime with that
To
checkerboard
the point, to
tunnel.
the point where this car almost bleeds by having the tire so incandescent that the rubber melts. Like, it's almost car gore.
Beautiful.
But I think that's also the point that we mentioned, the fact that the movie is at its strongest during the action scene, the teacher racing. And unfortunately, this was a time where racing, with a movie that was just a constant action scene was not really seen as profitable or, entertaining enough for the audience. You gotta need those quiet moments. Again, it's only an assumptions that we have made about executive meddling. Maybe for all we know, the Wachowskis are still to blame about interspersing in between the more small part, especially because they are plot relevant. The title, the backstory of Racer X, what Pops actually did, what it means to be a racer. But the problem, like I said, is that during these moments, the movie takes itself way too seriously. When in the original, despite having some serious moments, it was done in a more lighthearted way. And I get the idea that the thought process, like I said, was, that was a thing from the 60s. We had to think like this is the equivalent of a Silver Age comic adapted to a modern age standard, and as a result it needs to be more serious, more contextualized, and as a result it probably loses part of the insane charm that the original source material did have. The genuine thing that I did not like were the transitions. No, really, that I get what they were trying to do to an extent, but to give context, I prefer the one from Ang Lee's Hulk over these, and you do know that those ones are not good either. So that there's that too. But when it comes to the casting, I find for the most part, I still think Spritle's actor is slightly a bit too old for what they want to do. Like I said, considering most of his scenes involved around sneaking into the Mach 5 and occasionally throw, the slingshot, they could have really got a younger actor and cut away all of his dialogue, because a lot of the dialogue of Sprite is just him and Shim saying, "No, this looks wacky," which it looks like it's done for the more younger audience. Because like I said, a lot of times in this movie reminded me a lot of the Doctor, not just Spice Kids, but the Cat in the Hat movie. Both the CGI, the type of fourfold breaking, and it was awkward as fuck. Which also, let me talk briefly about this. No, the CGI, in other places, the CGI is not particularly great. In the second half, it definitely improves. But in the first half, it's actually more rough than it wants to be. And even, like I said, even if I like the color, the CGI makes it clash a bit as a result. So no, I think it should have been done more balanced, having a bit more practical effect in the first half, maybe, So I guess that, like I said, my favorite character is the British asshole, which I think was an invention for this movie. Like I said, in the source material, apparently Speed gets accosted occasionally by rich moguls that want to franchise him. It's kind of a bit similar as the plot points of Pokemon Gen 8, where the champion is either sponsored and Chairman Rose is supposed to be a take on capitalism and bad CEOs, just done in weird on its own way. Just say that. Ask Deji for more details. But no, this guy here is genuinely the highlight of the movie to me. The way the over the topness, even the fight scene, like I said, particularly the one against the ninja and the one against the mafia clan, are reminiscent of the episodes where sometimes the race gets interrupted because of these plots, and Speed and the others have to get out of the car in order to actually physically assault the people. Like I said, this is another indication to me that the people who made this had watched the source material and had some degree of respect and had fun with it as a result. So, like I said, there's genuinely a good heart in this movie. But I think at the end of the day, it's still a bit of a mess. Not enough to be consumed by, by the masses as a result. Certainly not today, where accessibility is even more regarded than in the past. Again, the reason why Shira is not present in this because she will not be able to see these movies as a result. Not necessarily to physically harm her, but to the point where she cannot actually watch it. She will not understand what's going on. I guess another description would technically alleviate a bit, but it's not the same thing. Come on. And the debate of an avant-garde movie, should it be done despite being, not as accessible to others? That's a debate I don't want to get in, at least not now. So that's my opinion at the end of the day. It's a mess, but I have to admit that I enjoyed it to at least some degree. So and I will take this over not only over other Wachowskis movie like Cloud Atlas and Jupiter Ascending, which I haven't mentioned much, and I will say mostly for my commentaries of that. But the problem is I with those movies is that I genuinely love the type of stories that they want to do. Jupiter Ascending is essentially tries to be another sci-fi epic, and Cloud Atlas is supposed to be a sort of a chess match between a set of characters that get reincarnated through several ages of time, which is such a cool concept, but they get ruined by different factors.
Yeah.
But I still take this movie both over those and as an anime adaptation over stuff like I just said, the Ghost in the Shell movie, the Death Note movie, the Cowboy Bebop series, for example.
Yes.
To name a few, and of course over Dragon Ball Evolution. Fuck Dragon Ball Evolution. So yeah, like I said, messy. I enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but I think there is, enough of a gem to appreciate it to at least some degree. For the time being, this is another one done. Maybe, like Fedor said, maybe we'll actually take a look at the anime at some point. So who knows? Stay tuned.
See ya.
See you then.